Warrior Lore. Chapter 54. Yeah, that's not right. There's something fishy going on here. Is Du Xiaofu really that strong? I heard that Yuan Shihu has reached the Xiantian stage. Could it be that Du Xiaofu has already? Many of the Du family members heard this and immediately reacted. Then, many of them looked stunned. Defeating Yuan Shihu in 2 moves was definitely not something an ordinary Xiantian stage cultivator could do. In the study, Du Jinwu sat upright and looked at Du Xiaofu, who had just walked in. He gestured for him to sit aside and said, "Xiaofu, regarding yesterday's matter, I want to ask your opinion. That Yuan Shihu scolded me, so I beat him up. That's all." Du Xiaofu replied. In front of his uncle, he was much more well-behaved. So what if Yuan Shihu beat him up? It's no big deal. Our Du family isn't afraid of the Yuan family. We won't bully others, but we definitely won't lose out either. Don't you agree? Du Jinwu rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu. He felt that in these 10 years, he really didn't understand this nephew of his. Yes, uncle is right. I definitely won't let others bully me in the future. Du Xiaofu smiled. All right, there are no outsiders here. Tell me about yesterday's matter. Du Jinwu glared at Du Xiaofu, his expression turning serious. Actually, I don't know what happened, but I feel that the Yi family came yesterday and the Yuan family came today. Things are a little strange. Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment, then said to Du Jinwu. Du Jinwu's eyes revealed a look of surprise, and he said to Du Xiaofu, "Tell me, how is it strange?" The Yi family was too friendly. Although that Yi Zijin is young, she's obviously a cold and arrogant girl, but she was overly friendly to me. On the other hand, the Si family was too pretentious. They said that they were here to cause trouble, but in the end, they left after making a few noises. It was obvious that they weren't really here to cause trouble. Also, that Chualong shouldn't be simple. Even if the other members of the Chua clan didn't think of it, I believe that Chualong must have known. Although I injured Chuahu, we are still juniors. The Chua clan came looking for trouble in such a grandiose manner, but they still came. Even if they came, it was just for show. Du Xiaofu paused for a moment. His eyes flickered as he looked at Du Jinwu and said, "There must be something wrong when things are out of the ordinary. Therefore, these things don't seem normal." Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Du Jinwu's eyes flickered. Suppressing the astonishment in his heart, he continued to ask Du Xiaofu, "Good boy, it seems that I have indeed underestimated you. Tell me, why did you fight yesterday? Was it just because Chihu scolded you?" Hee. Du Xiaofu smiled and said, "That girl from the Yi clan was too enthusiastic about me. I didn't want to disappoint her enthusiasm, so I decided to be a little more high profile. That girl is not simple at such a young age," Du Jinwu said softly. Then, he looked at Du Xiaofu and said softly, "Things are indeed not simple. The Stone City has been peaceful for so long. I'm afraid that it is about to change. The Yi clan is already the first to lose control. Do you want to know why?" "I'm a little curious." Although Du Xiaofu was a little confused, he was also quite curious. Du Jinwu continued to ask Du Xiaofu, "The Stone City is on the edge of the Barbarian Beast Mountain Range. There are many demonic beasts in the Barbarian Beast Mountain Range, and there are many kings among them. However, no demonic beast experts have ever invaded the Stone City. Even in the previous beast tide, no demonic beast entered the Stone City. Do you know why?" Du Xiaofu shook his head. During the 2 beast tides a while ago, the ground shook and everything was destroyed. However, there really weren't any demonic beasts that entered the Stone City. Because the Stone City has a demonic beast guarding it, Du Jinwu said. When he mentioned the demonic beast, his eyes changed. A demonic beast guarding the Stone City? Du Xiaofu also heard about this for the first time. In these years, the kings of the demonic beasts in the Barbarian Beast Mountain Range did not dare to set foot in the Stone City. The forces outside the Stone City that wanted to touch the Stone City did not dare to act rashly. Everything is because of the demonic beast guarding the Stone City. It is a thunder lion that is rumored to have reached the level of a beast lord. At the mention of the thunder demonic lion that guarded the Stone City, Du Jinwu's eyes also rippled with yearning. The level of a beast marquis was equivalent to the level of a human martial marquis. That level, to him, was also an existence that was unattainable. The level of a beast lord. Du Xiaofu's eyes suddenly lit up. The level of a beast lord was even higher than the level of a spiritual pulse. A demonic beast that was even stronger than a king-scaled demonic tiger was extremely powerful. There was actually such a terrifying existence in the Stone City. It is said that a few hundred years ago, an ancestor of the Yi clan accidentally saved an injured Thunder Lion. From then on, the Thunder Lion stayed in the Yi clan and stayed in the Stone City. It also intimidated the demonic beasts at the edge of the barbarian Beast Mountain range. For many generations, the Yi clan has been sitting in the Stone City and became the city lord. Du Jinwu said, I see. Du Xiaofu roughly understood. With such a strong demonic beast in the Yi clan, how could the other clans resist? Du Jinwu sighed and said, it is a pity that the Thunder Lion is already old and has not been able to improve in terms of cultivation. Its lifespan is nearing its end, and it seems that it has not recovered from its injuries. This is also the reason why it has been staying in the Yi clan. Now that it is old and weak, in addition to its injuries, its aura is declining day by day. There is news that the Thunder Lion may die soon. There will be a day when the marquee-level beasts reach the end of their lifespan. Du Xiaofu sighed in his heart. There will be a day when the marquee-level beasts reach the end of their lifespan. The lifespan of humans is shorter than that of demonic beasts. Comparing a marquee-level cultivator to a marquee-level cultivator, the marquee-level cultivator would definitely have a longer lifespan. If you want to go against the heavens and seize life, you have to continuously break through the shackles. Unfortunately, on the path of cultivation, every breakthrough is extremely difficult. The higher the level, the harder it is to reach the heavens. For a demonic beast at the beast marquee level, especially a demonic beast like the lightning demonic lion, the bones within its body are priceless treasures. Its essence blood is also priceless treasures. Once it dies, it will be enough to change the weather in the Stone City. Over the years, countless gazes have been fixed on the Yi family and the lightning demonic lion. Du Junwu's eyes trembled. For existences at the level of Beast Marquis, their bones and blood essence were enough to cause people to go crazy over them. All these years, those clans had been preparing and waiting. If anyone could obtain the treasures left behind by the Thunder Lion King, the benefits would be unimaginable. Once the Thunder Lion dies, I'm afraid the Yi clan will not be able to hold on. The Tai clan, the Bai clan, the Qing clan, and the other clans will definitely not let go of such an opportunity. Du Xiaofu was shocked. Thinking back to the battle between the Purple Flame Demonic Phoenix and the Golden Rock, the Sky Snake sect, the Mysterious Underworld sect, and the Mysterious Talisman sect all participated in the battle. This time, if the Thunder Lion died, how could the other clans in the Stone City let go of such an opportunity? The Yi clan would definitely not be able to take all the benefits for themselves. That's right, the Yi clan also knows that once something happens to the Thunder Lion, the Yi clan will not be able to hold on to the benefits left behind by the Thunder Lion. Therefore, the Yi clan is probing to see who exactly wants to fight for it. Du Jinwu said. Du Xiaofu frowned and said, I understand now. No wonder the Yi clan is so friendly towards me. They want to pull the Du clan to their side, and then find out who wants to deal with the Yi clan the most. The Yi clan has already started to make arrangements. Du Jinwu looked at Du Xiaofu, his eyes filled with shock again, and said, That's right. The Yi clan has already started to make arrangements. Last time, when Yi Baolin came, he had already secretly sent a message to me, saying that he wants to join hands with the Du clan. When the time comes, he will not forget about the benefits of the Thunder Lion. Uncle agreed? Du Xiaofu raised his head and asked, Can we not agree? Du Jinwu's mouth curved into a bitter smile. The Yi clan's methods are indeed brilliant. Du Xiaofu knew that the Du clan had no choice but to agree. If the Du clan did not agree, it would be the same as telling the Yi clan that the Du clan also wanted to deal with the Yi clan. But now that the Du clan and the Yi clan were so close, the other three clans would definitely be wary of the Du clan. 1 month from now, the younger generation of the 5 great clans will compete. At that time, the situation might change, and my Du clan will probably be unable to stay out of it. We've already been dragged into this vortex. Du Jinwu sighed, and his face was filled with worry. Uncle, what does this have to do with the competition between the younger generation of the 5 clans? Du Xiaofu did not quite understand. The Yi clan has been sitting in the Stone City for many generations, but outside the Stone City, there are many forces that have always wanted to touch the Stone City. Therefore, the Yi clan cannot fight alone. Although we have the Thunder Lion, the other clans will naturally have complaints. Du Jinwu explained, therefore, since a long time ago, the Yi clan has arranged for the competition between the younger generation of the various clans once every few years. The strongest one will be able to enter the lightning pool to cultivate. At that time, only the 4 great clans participated, and my Du clan only had the qualifications to participate more than 10 years ago. With regards to this, Du Xiaofu was not unfamiliar. It was said that although the Du clan had always been in the Stone City, their official rise began more than 10 years ago, and they had not been in the 5 great clans for long. As for the lightning pool, he had never heard of it before. Curiously, he asked, "What is the lightning pool?" Du Jinwu said, "The lightning pool is owned by the Yi clan. It is said that it can only be opened once every few years. There is a small amount of the Thunder Lion's blood essence inside. Cultivating in the lightning pool will allow you to obtain lightning to forge your body, which is very beneficial to your cultivation. If you can cultivate in the lightning pool, your future will be limitless." In the past few years, every time the younger generation of the major clans competed against each other, the winner would always be the Yi clan. Hence, the Yi clan's strength has always been stronger than the other clans. It's a pity that our Du clan hasn't risen for a long time, so no one from our Du clan has entered the lightning pool yet. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered. Lightning body refinement. He had practiced the cultivation method of the golden rock. If he added this lightning body refinement, would the effects be even better? Maybe there would be other benefits. After all, the lightning lion was a terrifying existence at the level of a beast lord. Chapter 55. Du Jinwu paused for a moment, then continued, "The Yi family opening up the Thunder Pool is partly to appease the dissatisfaction of the other families by handing over some of the benefits brought by the Thunder Lions, and also to intimidate the other families. In the past few years, the younger generation of the Du family has always won. To the other families, this is a form of intimidation, causing the other families to not dare to act rashly. 1 month later, when the younger generation of the 5 families compete, you have to find a way to enter the Thunder Pool. I still have injuries on my body. I'm afraid it will be difficult to win." Du Xiaofu said, "Stop talking nonsense. You are much more cunning than your father. I really don't know how our third brother could have such a cunning son. Don't think I don't know that Du Hao's cousin, that Imperial Knight, was clearly injured by you and couldn't bring himself to leave the Du family overnight. Do you really think I don't know?" Du Jinwu glared at Du Xiaofu. The difference between this little brat and their third brother's one-track mind was too great. Du Xiaofu smiled apologetically. It looked like his eldest uncle already knew. As a family, there was naturally no need to keep up the pretense. "Be serious. Don't think I don't know what you are planning." Du Jinwu rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu and said, "Some of the elders in the clan aren't stupid. I've discussed it with the elders in the clan. So long as you participate in the competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans and win, then the violet Qiyang scripture will be given to you to cultivate." "That's it?" Du Xiaofu's eyes flashed. If he had been able to obtain the purple Qi Chaoyang scripture back then, it would naturally have been a joyous occasion. But now that he had already practiced the cultivation method of the golden rock, Du Xiaofu naturally did not have any expectations for the purple Qi Chaoyang scripture. "What else do you want? Last time, you snatched the blood essence of the violent stone demon wolf and the foundation establishment pill from Du Hao. Isn't that enough?" Du Jinwu rolled his eyes again at Du Xiaofu. "Fine, I will try my best." Du Xiaofu helplessly nodded. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to obtain any other benefits. Although he didn't have any expectations for the purple Qi Chaoyang scripture, he still had to take a look at the Thunder Pool. Combined with his own body transformation method, he might be able to take another step forward. Are these spiritual herbs and materials that can only be used by talisman masters what you want? Du Xiaofu took out a large wooden box from the study room and opened the lid. Inside the box were elixirs and some materials that only spirit talisman masters could use. They were very expensive and not something that ordinary people could afford. Moreover, these were all materials that only spirit talisman masters could use. He looked at Du Xiaofu doubtfully and said, "This was sent by Du Ping early in the morning. He said that you bought these materials? That's what I want. I want to try and see if I can become a talisman master." Du Xiaofu nodded his head. He had already expected that the Du family would find out about his purchase of elixirs from the Du family store. Hence, there was nothing to hide. "You want to become a talisman master?" Du Jinwu looked at Du Xiaofu in surprise. He had already asked someone to check Du Xiaofu's spiritual roots. It was impossible for him to become a talisman master. "I just want to try. It doesn't matter if I succeed or not," Du Xiaofu said. Du Jinwu looked at Du Xiaofu. After a long time, his expression gradually eased and he said softly, "If you really want to try, our Du family store has also invited a talisman master to refine elixirs. Although he is only a 2-star talisman master, I believe that if I go and talk to him, he will be able to give you a few pointers. A talisman master is not something that can be achieved by immersing yourself in exploration." "Thank you, uncle, but I don't need it for the time being. I will try it myself first." Du Xiaofu knew that there was a 2-star talisman master in the Du family store. Previously, the talisman master had treated his illness. Although he was only a 2-star talisman master, which was equivalent to a warrior of the Xiantian level, because of the special characteristics of a talisman master, even his uncle had to be polite to him. It was said that his status in the Du family was extremely high. However, according to Zhang Qingchuan's words, if a 5-star talisman master was not a fart in front of him, then a 2-star talisman master was not even worth mentioning. Therefore, Du Xiaofu planned to see if Zhang Qingchun had tricked him or not. "All right, you can decide for yourself. However, in a month's time, there will be a competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans. Don't delay it. This time, I'm afraid that Du Hao and Du Yin won't be able to gain any advantage. Your brother and sister missed the competition between the 5 great clans 3 years ago and have been away all this time. Therefore, this time, we can only rely on you," Du Jinwu said seriously. He did not say anything more about the talisman master. At that time, Du Jinwu had abandoned his martial vein, but now he could practice. Perhaps there would be some miracles in the talisman master realm now. If a talisman master really appeared in the Du family, it would be a great benefit for the whole Du family. Therefore, there were some things that he did not need to ask too much. Everyone had some secrets. It was normal for the 3rd brother's son to have some secrets. "I will do my best." Du Xiaofu was grateful to his uncle. He knew that his uncle was good to him. The brother and sister mentioned by his uncle were his eldest uncle's daughter and second uncle's son. The 2 of them had been wandering outside since they were very young. Du Xiaofu had not seen them for a long time. He still remembered that when he was young, his eldest sister and second brother would often protect him. After chatting with his uncle for a while, Du Xiaofu picked up the wooden box and left. When he walked to the door of the study, Du Jinwu called out to Du Xiaofu and said, "Xiaofu, this time in the other families, it is said that there are also extraordinary juniors. Several of them have stepped into the Xiantian stage. What level have you reached? Can you tell me so that I can know?" Du Xiaofu turned his head, smiled and said, "Thunder Pool, I will definitely go." As his voice faded, Du Xiaofu strode out of the study. The Thunder Pool was extremely beneficial for body cultivation. Naturally, he would not miss such an opportunity. This kid, what level has he reached? His words are so domineering. I can't see through him. Du Jinwu was puzzled. He had always wanted to pry into Du Xiaofu's cultivation level, but strangely, he could not pry into it. It was as if there was no way to pry into it. "Father, you're back?" Du Xiaofu carried the wooden box back to the courtyard. It was rare to see his unkempt drunkard father at home. However, he was still hugging a wine jug and lying on the rattan chair. And Du Tingxian only responded softly. He continued hugging the wine jug and leaning on the rattan chair, staring blankly into the sky. Du Xiaofu entered his room and put down the wooden box. From his chinkoan bag, he took out a newly bought wine jug and a few sets of clothes. He once again stood in front of his father and said, "Father, your wine jug must have been used for a long time. This is the new wine jug and a few sets of clothes I bought for you. When you have time, take a bath. And Du Tingxian only responded softly. His gaze, still staring blankly into the sky, did not move. Leave them here. I'm going out for a while. Don't drink too much wine. Du Xiaofu placed the newly bought sets of clothes beside the rattan chair. He looked at his father's face, which was half covered by his messy long hair, and then left the courtyard. After a long time, Du Tingxian moved. He picked up the clothes and wine jug on the side of the rattan chair and looked into the distance, his eyes rippling a little. Rumble. In the depths of the mountain behind the Du residence, another rumbling sound came. Du Xiaofu once again immersed himself in cultivation. At night, Du Xiaofu finally stopped. He sat down cross-legged and began to cultivate. The king's scaled demon tiger had been watching from nearby without blinking. Night, the bright moon hung in the sky. What do you think about Du Xiaofu from the Du family? In front of the courtyard, Qiu Qingsong looked at his son and asked. Chuolong raised his head to look at the bright moon circling in the sky. His robe fluttered as he stood with his hands behind his back. He replied, Father, don't you already have an opinion? Why are you still asking me? Qiu Qingsong faintly smiled and said that Du Xiaofu is not simple at such a young age. Chuahu's failure was not unjustified. He is indeed not simple. His strength is also not simple. His cultivation is unfathomable. The Bai and Qin families should be preparing as well. Looks like I should also go into seclusion this month. Otherwise, I really don't have much confidence. Chuolong lowered his head and smiled. But before that, I should think of a way to let the Bai and Qin families out. I can't just let them keep an eye on my Chua family. Only by encountering a strong opponent can you continuously improve. This is a good thing for you. Qiu Qingsong gazed in the direction of the Yi family in the Stone City. His eyes suddenly flashed as he said, If I can obtain that huge treasure, then my future will truly be limitless. For the Chua family, for all of you, I will do my best. Chapter 56. Early in the morning dew touched his eyelashes, the fragrance of the forest, and the dark blue mountain range in the distance. A few broken stars began to dim and disappear in the vast sky, finally disappearing. Phew! Du Xiaofu spat out a mouthful of turbid air from his abdomen, opened his eyes, and slightly stretched his body. The joints all over his body crackled as if they contained an endless amount of power that was about to erupt. I wonder when I will be able to complete the first level of the golden feather refinement. Every time he felt the changes and improvements in his body after practicing the body refinement technique, Du Xiaofu was extremely satisfied. A miracle. You are a miracle. Practicing the golden winged rocks cultivation technique. How did you do it? It's an absolute miracle, inconceivable. Jin Qingchuan's voice rang out, and the small pagoda automatically jumped out from Du Xiaofu's bosom. The energy within the pagoda fluctuated, and a wretched face appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. Its gaze was as if it had discovered a new continent, and its face was filled with disbelief. Didn't you say you needed 3 days to recover? How did you recover in 2 days? Du Xiaofu looked at Jin Qingchun and asked with some doubt. The Xian Qi in your body is very pure, and much better than I imagined. The effect is also excellent, so it was brought forward by a day. Jin Qingchuan's gaze was still in shock, as if he wanted to see through Du Xiaofu. He said, You really have a lot of secrets on your body. Practicing the golden winged rocks cultivation technique. How did you do it? I'm afraid that the golden winged rock clan will not let you go if they find out that a human has practiced their cultivation technique. Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Jin Qingchun, and then said, You should worry about yourself. If you can't make me a spirit talisman master, then I guarantee that you won't just be suppressed by a boy's urine every day. Kid, you better be a little more respectful to me. You still have a favor to ask of me. Jin Qingchun glanced at Du Xiaofu. His old-fashioned look was completely out of place with his 10-year-old appearance. Jin Qingchun couldn't help but laugh. Don't forget, you also have a favor to ask of me, Du Xiaofu said calmly. You. Jin Qingchun held back his anger, rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu, and said bitterly, Now I will teach you how to become a talisman master. Although you have some talent, whether you can become a talisman master or not depends on whether you have the luck. Anyway, if I can't become a talisman master, You will also be unlucky, Du Xiaofu said lightly. He didn't want to be led by the nose by Zhen Qingchun. Zhen Qingchun wanted to curse. This brat was simply impossible to deal with. He glanced at Du Xiaofu and said, "Have you prepared the things I asked you to prepare?" "I've prepared them. Do you need them now?" Du Xiaofu nodded. "You don't need them now. The things I asked you to prepare are for the promotion of your spiritual roots. Before promoting your spiritual roots, I have to formally determine whether you can become a talisman master or not," Zhen Qingchun said. "How can I be sure?" Du Xiaofu was also a little nervous. To become a talisman master, you need to have extraordinary spiritual power and spiritual roots. Both are indispensable. Your spiritual roots are poor, but you have spiritual power that ordinary people simply can't compare with. This is your advantage. Zhen Qingchuan's illusory face was somewhat proud. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "To determine whether you can become a talisman master or not, the first thing I have to do is to see whether you can condense a spiritual stove symbol cauldron." "What's a spiritual stove symbol cauldron?" Du Xiaofu looked at Zhen Qingchun with a serious expression. People are born from their parents' brains. Their whole body is pure, connected like a ring, and white like silk. The first 3 elements are born, and the second 2 kidneys are born. Gradually, 2 eyes are born, and 2 external kidneys are born. Once the 3 elements are born, the 5 viscera, the 6 bowels, the 4 limbs, and the 100 bones are born. Afterwards, the human body has the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth to match the 5 viscera. The lungs are metal, the liver is wood, the kidney is water, the heart is fire, and the temper is earth. Metal can give birth to water, and the kidney's water is the essence of the acquired world. Therefore, the lungs represent the innate energy, the wood can give birth to fire, and the heart's fire is the acquired spirit. Therefore, the liver and wood represent the innate soul, the heart is the furnace and the fire is the fire, and the kidney is the cauldron and the water is the cauldron. Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "The spiritual stove symbol cauldron is the palace of ancestral qi and can bear all living things. This is also the first thing a symbol master must do. Look carefully. I'll let you see what a spiritual stove symbol cauldron is." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhen Qingchuan's illusory hand seals were constantly condensing, intertwining with each other in a mysterious and unfathomable manner. Waves of energy were constantly fluctuating, and as the hand seals were condensed, a series of runes appeared. Du Xiaofu's gaze was firmly fixed on Zhen Qingchuan's hand seals. Every time Zhen Qingchun was serious, Du Xiaofu felt that Zhen Qingchun didn't seem like a swindler at all. That kind of aura was absolutely not something a swindler could imitate. Even if one could imitate his appearance, they wouldn't be able to imitate his incorporeal charm. Boom! When the last hand seal was condensed, Zhen Qingchuan's illusory body shook, and an illusory cauldron about the size of his body appeared in midair in front of him. The cauldron was wrapped in white, green, black, red, and yellow energy. Mysterious runes lingered on it, as if it could transform endlessly and give birth to all living things in the world. Accompanied by a blazing aura, a terrifying aura swept out like a storm. Walala! Under the blazing aura, Du Xiaofu's body staggered back. The cauldron was accompanied by a huge pressure that descended, causing the blood in Du Xiaofu's body to freeze. His whole body trembled, and under the huge pressure, he wanted to crawl. Du Xiaofu's gaze was tightly locked onto the cauldron. The cauldron was condensed from mysterious runes. Blazing flames danced about as the mysterious runes on the cauldron danced about. It was indescribably mysterious. Zhen Qingchun put away his spiritual stove and symbol cauldron, his eyes filled with doubt. He had revealed this move in order to show off and make that kid suffer a small loss, but he didn't expect that kid to be able to withstand such a blazing temperature and such a powerful aura. In fact, although his current strength couldn't even be compared to 1 or 2 10,000ths of his previous strength, a pulsation realm fighter would find it hard to resist. But this kid, at the Xiantian realm, could easily resist it. So this is the benefit of practicing the cultivation method of the golden-winged Great Peng. This kid is just like a Great Peng in human form. Zhen Qingchun sighed to himself. This kind of talent was indeed rarely seen. Was the cauldron you just condensed? As Zhun Qingchun put away the cauldron in front of him, Du Xiaofu came back to his senses, his eyes still filled with shock. Right, the cauldron I just condensed was a cauldron. But in my current situation, I can only condense it slightly. Zhun Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu, his gaze not lacking in brilliance, and said, "You also saw the spiritual stove and talisman cauldron I just condensed? The human body has the energies of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth of the 5 elements, matching the 5 viscera. The lungs are metal, the liver is wood, the kidneys are water, the heart is fire, and the temper is earth. Metal gives birth to water, the kidneys are acquired essence, the lungs represent innate energy, the wood gives birth to fire, the heart represents innate energy, and the liver represents innate soul. With the heart as the cauldron as the fire, and the kidneys as the cauldron as the water, condensing a cauldron will prove that you have the talent to become a spiritual talisman master. Mediocre people have no way to become a talisman master. Although you have some talent, and your mental force is also not bad. Whether you can become a talisman master or not will depend on your own comprehension." "Okay, I will give it a try first." Du Xiaofu nodded. A moment ago, in the cauldron condensed by Zhun Qingchun, he seemed to have comprehended something. Immediately, he closed his eyes, immersing himself in this state of comprehension. "Humph, take your time to comprehend. Even if your talent is even greater, it will still take you at least a month to comprehend a cauldron. Don't worry, take your time," Zhun Qingchun said indifferently, his vulgar eyes revealing a complacent smile. He didn't believe that this kid wouldn't kneel down and beg him when the time came. Even with his talent that everyone praised at the time, and under his careful guidance, it still took him a whole month to condense a cauldron. Chapter 57. But Zhun Qingchun was still hiding something, and didn't even teach him anything. He only lectured him a little, and didn't even impart the mysteries of the runes used to condense a spiritual stove or a symbol cauldron. Therefore, Zhun Qingchun didn't believe that kid would be able to condense a spiritual stove or a symbol cauldron. When the time came, he would kneel down and beg him. At that time, he would definitely teach him a lesson. As he thought of this, a smile blossomed on Zhun Qingchun's wretched face. Soon after, he transformed into a wave of energy and continued to enter the small tower. He was waiting for the day when that brat would kneel and beg him. At the back of the mountain, Du Xiaofu was immersed in his comprehension. Hand seals condensed and changed one after another in his hands. They were extremely similar to the hand seals condensed by Zhun Qingchun, and there was not much difference. Faintly, runes began to spread, and waves of aura spread out. However, they seemed to have encountered some kind of obstruction, and the runes continuously collapsed and shattered. Du Xiaofu didn't give up. Hand seals kept condensing, and more runes appeared. Every time he condensed a hand seal, the duration of the runes would grow longer and longer. At this moment, if Zhun Qingchun were to witness all of this with his own eyes, who knew how he would feel in his heart? Everything did not develop as he had expected. The king's scaled demon tiger was lazily leaning against a rock, closing its eyes to rest. Occasionally, it would open its eyes to look at Du Xiaofu, before closing them again. Time slowly passed, from early morning to evening. Hand seals condensed in Du Xiaofu's hand one after another. After failing, he continued to condense, completely immersed in his comprehension. At dusk, the sun was close to the horizon, like a ball of fire about to be extinguished. The afterglow of the setting sun passed through the mountain peak and reflected in the back mountain, as if a layer of rust had appeared on the mountain range. In the setting sun, a faint red glow was left on the horizon. Bang! When night fell, Du Xiaofu, who was deep in the mountains, condensed the last handprint in his hand. Suddenly, a terrifying aura burst out from his body. The runes in front of him quickly gathered and arranged, and finally condensed into a furnace. A blazing aura spread out, and the mysterious runes of the talisman flickered and jumped. The powerful aura rushed out like a wave. Compared to Zhun Qingchun's spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron, this blazing cauldron was a bit more illusory, and its aura was clearly a lot weaker. The mysterious patterns on it were also a lot simpler, to the extent that there were only runes and no talismans. However, there were still white, green, black, red, and yellow energy radiances. Above the cauldron, there was a faint golden radiance, faintly flickering with runes. At this moment, Du Xiaofu could feel the profound energy in his spirit watchtower and meridians being instantly absorbed by the cauldron. The condensed cauldron was like a monster that specialized in devouring profound energy. It wanted to devour all of the profound energy in his body. A spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron. You actually condensed a spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron. How is this possible? Zhang Qingquan's illusory figure appeared in the air in front of Du Xiaofu. His immature and wretched face was filled with shock, and his eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Condensing a spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron in a single day was a scene that appeared before his eyes. White, green, black, red, and yellow. These 5 colored runes. This is impossible. My eyes must be deceiving me. Jin Qingchun blinked his eyes. He found this scene hard to believe. This was just too inconceivable. He clearly understood that if this scene were to appear in the outside world and reach the ears of those old monsters, who knew how many of them would be alarmed. This was simply an inconceivable miracle. Qi, the spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron condensed in front of Du Xiaofu's body collapsed, and he staggered back a few steps. His face was deathly pale. In a short time, the profound energy in his body was completely consumed, and he was no longer able to support the cauldron. He was even more exhausted than after a great battle. Kid, have you really never condensed a spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron before? Zhang Qingquan's gaze was firmly fixed on Du Xiaofu's body. He absolutely didn't believe that this kid had never condensed a spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron before. No, don't tell me that the one I just condensed was still a failure. Du Xiaofu's eyes revealed some disappointment. Condensing a spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron was really quite difficult and wasn't easy to comprehend. Jin Qingchun helplessly rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu. Although he couldn't believe it, from the look in Du Xiaofu's eyes, as well as his recent observations, he knew that this kid was absolutely not lying. No, you succeeded in condensing a spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron. The spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron you condensed contains the 5 types of runes of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. This is the best spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron. Zhang Qingchun was somewhat speechless. This kid could only be described as abnormal. He was obviously a human, but trained in the cultivation method of the golden-winged Great Pong, and condensed a spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron in a single day. Furthermore, he condensed a spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron with 5 types of runes. If this wasn't abnormal, what else could it be? Did you succeed? I thought that you had failed. It took you a whole day to condense it. Is my innate talent really that bad? How long did it take you to condense it? It must have taken you less time than me. Du Xiaofu's face was deathly pale, and he looked at Zhang Qingchun with some sighs and disappointment. You. Zhang Qingchun choked back his words. How was he supposed to reply? Was he supposed to tell this abnormal kid that at that time, even with his heavenly talent, it took him a month to comprehend and condense a spiritual stove and a symbol cauldron? Zhang Qingchun really wanted to take a piece of tofu and ruthlessly smash it against that seemingly innocent face. This abnormal kid was deliberately making him look bad. Alas, I knew that my innate talent as a spiritual symbol master was not good enough, but in the end, I succeeded in condensing a spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron. Seeing Zhang Qingchun not reply, Du Xiaofu was even more certain that his innate talent was not enough. Then, looking at Zhang Qingchun, he weakly asked, "Right. You just said that the spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron I condensed contains the 5 types of runes of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, and is the best spiritual furnace and symbol cauldron. What does that mean?" At this moment, Zhang Qingchun really wanted to violently kick this abnormal kid a few times, to make him blush with shame and sullen to the extreme. But Zhang Qingchun knew that he was currently unable to do so. If he recovered later, he would definitely trample on this abnormal kid. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed the anger and sullenness in his heart, and said to Du Xiaofu with a supercilious look, "Spiritual symbol masters are also divided into many kinds, which are a lot more complicated than the path of martial cultivation. Strictly speaking, they should be divided into medicinal symbol masters, tool symbol masters, and formation symbol masters. As the name implies, medicinal symbol masters are naturally suited to develop in the field of alchemy, while tool symbol masters are suited to develop in the field of refining tools. What about formation symbol masters? Du Xiaofu was really surprised. He didn't expect that there would be so many differences among spiritual symbol masters. Jin Qingchun raised his eyebrows and said, "Formation symbol masters are naturally able to have some attainments in the field of talisman arrays. Formation symbol masters are the rarest existences among all spiritual symbol masters and are publicly recognized as the most terrifying existences among them." Talisman arrays. Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up. Naturally, he had heard about talisman arrays. It was rumored that those spiritual symbol masters who could arrange talisman arrays were all terrifying existences and unpredictable. It was said that a powerful talisman array was enough to contend with an empire. Taking a slight breath, Du Xiaofu continued to ask Jin Qingchun, could it be that medicinal symbol masters and tool symbol masters can't have attainments in talisman arrays? Of course not. It's difficult for one formation symbol master to appear among 10,000 spiritual symbol masters. Formation symbol masters are rare existences among spiritual symbol masters, and any one of them is enough to show disdain for the outstanding heroes, because formation symbol masters are almost omnipotent existences among spiritual symbol masters. As he said that, Zhang Qingchuan's eyes were filled with pride. Looking at Du Xiaofu, he said with a proud smile, "And I am a formation symbol master among spiritual symbol masters, an almost omnipotent existence. For you to meet me, you must have burned countless incense sticks. You must have been blessed by your ancestors to have such an opportunity." Du Xiaofu gave Jin Qingchun a blank look and said, speaking so arrogantly, "If you have the ability, don't ask me for my internal force." Jin Qingchun was once again defeated by Du Xiaofu. His previous pride immediately vanished, and he continued helplessly, "The human body is endlessly mysterious. Every person's body contains the 5 energies of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. The only difference is that some are strong and some are weak. For spiritual symbol masters, those who condense fire and wood runes on their spiritual stoves and talisman cauldrons can become medicinal symbol masters and have some attainments in the field of alchemy. Those who condense metal and water runes on their spiritual stoves and talisman cauldrons can have great attainments and prospects in the field of refining." Chapter 58. Jin Qingchun raised his eyebrows, coldly snorting as he said, "As for talisman masters, they need the 5 types of rune energies of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth to be prominent at the same time. Only when all 5 types of rune energies are prominent at the same time can they practice talisman seals and set up talisman arrays. No wonder talisman masters are so few and far between. So it turns out that they need the 5 types of rune energies of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth." Du Xiaofu seemed to have understood somewhat, as if he had suddenly thought of something astonishing. Looking at Jin Qingchun, he asked in astonishment, "In that case, medicine talisman masters and tool talisman masters are affected by rune energies and are unable to develop further as talisman masters. But talisman masters have 5 types of rune energies, so aren't they also medicine talisman masters and array talisman masters at the same time?" "In theory, yes, but your thinking is too simple." Jin Qingchun indifferently glanced at Du Xiaofu and sighed, "Biting off more than you can chew. No matter if it's refining medicine, refining weapons, or talisman arrays, these are all incomparably profound. How many peerlessly talented seniors and famous experts have exhausted their entire life's worth of effort and still found it difficult to set foot on the peak of a single field, refining medicine, refining weapons, and talisman arrays at the same time. In the end, one would only end up with nothing. In this world, who has the talent and ability to simultaneously cultivate everything? Then what about you? I remember that your spiritual stove symbol cauldron also has 5 types of rune energies," Du Xiaofu asked. "I major in talisman arrays and minor in medicine refining, but I no longer have the energy to study tool refining. Even medicine refining as a minor is already very strenuous." Jin Qingchun sighed. Practicing all of them at the same time was something even he couldn't do. Not to mention that not all spirit talisman masters could be talisman masters. He had never heard of a spirit talisman master who could simultaneously practice all of them. Du Xiaofu could also understand what Jin Qingchun had said. No matter if it was a martial artist or a spiritual talisman master, a medicine talisman master, a weapon talisman master, or a formation talisman master, any path of cultivation was vast and endless. A person's energy was limited. Countless experts and peerless talents had spent their entire lives on a single path of cultivation, but it was still difficult for them to set foot on the peak, let alone cultivating several paths at the same time. Oh right, what should I cultivate? Can I become a talisman master now? Also, how long did it take for you to condense your spiritual stove and symbol cauldron? How much time did it take for you to condense your spiritual stove and symbol cauldron? Is my innate talent as a symbol master really that bad? Jin Qingchun, why did your expression change? You look a little embarrassed. Du Xiaofu continued to throw a pile of questions at Jin Qingchun. In the end, Jin Qingchun couldn't take it anymore, and after glaring at Du Xiaofu with a murderous look, he hid inside the small pagoda without the slightest hesitation. This abnormal kid was definitely deliberately trying to attack him, Jin Qingchun firmly believed. Jin Qingchun, you still haven't told me whether I'm qualified or not. At the very least, you should tell me whether my innate talent is good enough or not. If I can't compare with you, you don't have to refuse to answer me. You don't have to look down on me like that. Kid, after adjusting your breathing, continue condensing your spiritual stove and symbol cauldron. When you're proficient enough, I'll naturally inform you. In addition, I'll pass on to you the Great One Soul mantra to cultivate mental force. Jin Qingchuan's voice was transmitted from the small pagoda. Great One Qi, from nothingness, the heavens and people are all bewildered. The heavens use yin and yang and the 5 elements to give birth to all living things, while the qi takes shape. People have innate righteousness, becoming the spirit of all living things. After transmitting the mantra, Jin Qingchun didn't pay any more attention to Du Xiaofu. 5 days later, in a quiet valley behind the Du family's mountain, Jin Qingchuan's illusory figure condensed a spiritual stove and symbol cauldron in front of him. Changing his hand seals, he continuously threw a pile of spiritual herbs in front of him into the cauldron. Walala! As the flames inside the cauldron surged out, the surrounding temperature immediately became scorching hot. The spiritual herbs were immediately swallowed by the flames, before turning into liquid. Ripples of energy immediately spread out. Watching Jin Qingchuan's every move closely, Du Xiaofu watched Jin Qingchuan's hand seals change without blinking. Inside, he was somewhat shocked by Jin Qingchun. Although he hadn't come into contact with other spiritual talisman masters, he could feel that this kind of method was absolutely not something an ordinary spiritual talisman master could accomplish. Jin Qingchuan's gaze was fixed on the changes in the flame and the spiritual liquid inside the cauldron. Unceasingly refining the impurities inside the spiritual liquid, his expression was extremely relaxed, as if this was a very easy task. After no less than half an hour, Jin Qingchuan's face started to become more and more illusory, showing some signs of exhaustion. But after the last spiritual liquid was turned into liquid, a palm-sized spiritual liquid appeared inside the cauldron. The cauldron dissipated, and the spiritual liquid was wrapped in Jin Qingchuan's palm. Looking at the spiritual liquid in Jin Qingchuan's palm, Du Xiaofu's eyes glowed. He could clearly feel how abundant the energy contained within the spiritual liquid was. If he consumed it and cultivated the conjoined body technique, there would definitely be a huge improvement. Should I consume the spiritual liquid? Du Xiaofu was filled with anticipation. After consuming the spiritual liquid, there would definitely be a lot of improvement. If you want to die, then consume it. This spiritual liquid was refined by me to strengthen your spiritual roots. If you consume it directly, it will be enough to shatter your spiritual gate. Jin Qingchun rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu. With a light flick of his finger, the spiritual liquid in his palm fell into a natural pool in the valley. Immediately, the clear pool in the valley turned greenish-white. Walala! As the spiritual liquid fell, the previously calm spiritual liquid suddenly became violent, causing the water to boil like boiling water. Strip naked and jump in. Let your body absorb the medicinal power. I estimate that after soaking in it for 8 to 10 years, your spiritual roots will be more or less complete. Zhan Qingquan's illusory sleeves shook, as if he was extremely satisfied with the spiritual liquid he refined. Upon hearing this, Du Xiaofu's expression became a little awkward. He said, 8 to 10 years, isn't that a little too long? Can it be faster? What do you think this is? How many people in the world can strengthen their spiritual roots? You think it's too slow? Zhan Qingquan glared fiercely at Du Xiaofu. He rolled his eyes and said, also, the spiritual liquid's effect can only last you one time. In the future, you will have to absorb the medicinal power 3 times a month to strengthen your spiritual roots. So, you'll have to prepare more of these things for today. 3 times a month. Damn it. Du Xiaofu's face froze, and then he became embarrassed. Why? Do you think it's too expensive? I know you can't afford the good ones, so I've already chosen the cheapest ones. If you buy materials that satisfy me, I'm afraid that the price of the materials one time is too expensive for a spiritual pulse-level cultivator to afford even if he sells his entire family's fortune, Zhan Qingquan said. Du Xiaofu's expression became even more awkward. Zhan Qingquan had listed the worst materials for him, but he could only endure it. He couldn't even afford the cheapest materials now, so what else could he say? According to Zhan Qingquan's instructions, Du Xiaofu took off his clothes and jumped into the pool naked. Circulate the Great One Soul mantra and absorb the medicinal power into your body. Zhan Qingquan's voice once again passed into Du Xiaofu's ears. Du Xiaofu sat in the pool with his legs crossed. A mysterious figure floated on the surface of the water. He formed a seal with his hands and circulated the Great One Soul skill. Immediately, the boiling water surface of the pool reacted. It was as though it had found an outlet. Wave after wave of ripples swept towards Du Xiaofu. This kid is a freak, an absolute freak. On Zhan Qingquan's illusory face, his eyes were fixed on Du Xiaofu in the pool, and he couldn't wait to pick up a stone and throw it at him. He condensed a spiritual furnace and a symbol cauldron in one day, and a 5-rune one at that. And in just 5 days, this abnormal kid had actually succeeded in cultivating the Great One Soul mantra. Thinking back, it took him a full year and 5 months to successfully cultivate the Great One Soul technique. But this kid only took 5 days. After that, he even asked him if it was because he took too long and his talent was not enough. This made Zhan Qingquan simply unable to accept it. Bang! Suddenly, changes occurred in the pool. As Du Xiaofu circulated the Great One Soul mantra, waves of fluctuation swept over, and an abundant energy beyond Du Xiaofu's imagination rushed over. Chapter 59. Amidst the abundant energy, Du Xiaofu's naked body continued to form hand seals as he began to absorb the abundant energy contained within the spiritual liquid. Finally, the energy entered his body through his pores and greedily absorbed the endless energy within the spiritual liquid. Suddenly, under the stimulation of the spiritual liquid's energy, Du Xiaofu felt as if something mysterious was about to jump out of his body. It was as if something mysterious was hibernating in his body and had suddenly awakened, causing him to feel a piercing pain all over his body. He could not help but let out a miserable cry. Chilala. At this moment, mysterious rays of light began to blossom from Du Xiaofu's naked body. Rays of light jumped out. The rays of light were somewhat turbid and dim, but they were connected to the meridians and blood vessels in his body. When the rays of light finally intertwined and condensed on the surface of Du Xiaofu's body, a terrifying aura spread out. A dense net of light wrapped around Du Xiaofu. Roar! In the valley, the king's scaled demonic tiger looked at Du Xiaofu, who was wrapped in the net of light. The oppressive aura that spread out from the net of light caused the king's scaled demonic tiger to tremble and crawl on the ground. Heavens, this is... Above the pool, Zhan Qingquan's illusory face suddenly changed in shock. He looked at the mysterious net of light around Du Xiaofu's body, and his eyes became dull. Martial vein spiritual seal. This is a martial vein spiritual seal, and not an ordinary martial vein spiritual seal. Zhan Qingquan's gaze was fixed on the net of light around Du Xiaofu's body. Immediately after, He seemed to have discovered something within the net of light. His face was once again filled with shock as he said, "Spiritual root. This kid's spiritual root is not bad. It's sealed." What a brilliant sealing technique. Abundant energy ripples were present within the pool. However, they were rapidly devoured and absorbed by the light net. A majestic and desolate aura surged from the light net. Soon after, the pool regained its calm. The mysterious light net also disappeared, while Du Xiaofu fell unconscious within the pool. When Du Xiaofu woke up, he found himself lying on a rock beside the pool. He had already put on his clothes, and the faces of Zhang Qingchun and the king's scaled demonic tiger appeared in front of him. What happened? Du Xiaofu asked. He only remembered the piercing pain in his body, as if something mysterious was awakening. Then, he fainted. Zhang Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and said in a deep voice, "I made a mistake. I just checked you carefully. It's not that you don't have a spiritual root, but that your spiritual root has been sealed." "What do you mean?" Du Xiaofu sat up, feeling a little dizzy. He patted his head and felt that his body was gradually returning to normal. To put it simply, your spiritual root is actually very strong. It's so strong that even I can't see through it. However, someone has a grudge against you. Your spiritual root was sealed when you were born. The person who sealed your spiritual root is very strong. So strong that even if I were at my peak, it would still be difficult for me to break the seal. Zhang Qingchuan's gaze flickered. The seal was too strong. He did not understand why such a strong person would seal a baby's spiritual root. Someone sealed my spiritual root? Du Xiaofu's expression changed greatly when he heard this. He immediately looked at Zhang Qingchun and asked, "Are you telling the truth? Why would I lie to you?" Zhang Qingchun rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu. "Who on earth has such a deep grudge against me?" Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with anger. His spiritual root had been sealed, and his martial vein had been destroyed. It was obvious that this person did not want him to cultivate and wanted him to become a mediocre person. What a sinister method. Zhang Qingchun hesitated for a moment. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "When I examined you just now, I discovered something. You really have a lot of secrets. You actually integrated with the mystic bone of the golden-winged rock. No wonder you can cultivate the cultivation method of the golden-winged rock. However, I also discovered that there is not only the mystic bone of the golden-winged rock in your body, but also an aura that is not inferior to that of the golden-winged rock. It's a pity that I can't examine it in my current state." Zhang Qingchun paused for a moment. Just now, when Du Xiaofu was unconscious, he found out that this kid had a lot of amazing secrets. At this moment, he still could not help but look calm. He continued to say to Du Xiaofu, "In addition, your martial vein should have been destroyed before, but for some reason, it miraculously recovered. It seems that something happened in your body, causing your sealed spiritual root to loosen a little. This change should be related to the mystic bone of the golden-winged rock and the other aura in your body, because your spiritual root now has the aura of the golden-winged rock and that other aura." "Has my spiritual root recovered?" Du Xiaofu looked at Zhang Qingchun and asked. "No." Zhang Qingchun shook his head and said, "But I have two good news for you." "What good news?" Du Xiaofu asked. "The first good news is that from the martial vein and the sealed spiritual root in your body, you should not be an ordinary person. It is impossible for ordinary people to have those kinds of martial vein and spiritual root." Zhang Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and narrowed his eyes. He continued, "Because something happened in your body, and because of the stimulation of the elixir I just refined, the seal has loosened." "What do you mean?" Du Xiaofu was a little confused. "In other words, you can already become a spiritual talisman master. Your spiritual root is very strong, and your spiritual power is also very strong. It is enough to have a good future as a spiritual talisman master. However, your spiritual root is still sealed, which will suppress and affect your path as a spiritual talisman master. If you wait until I recover to my peak, I have a 50% chance of helping you break the seal, but I can't do anything now," Zhang Qingchun said. Du Xiaofu stood up. On his resolute face, his clear eyes were constantly fluctuating. Zhang Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and asked, "What do you plan to do?" Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at Zhang Qingchun. He said, I want to know who has a deep hatred for me and who will also help you recover as soon as possible. Didn't you say that I am a liar and that you are always on guard against me? After I recover, aren't you afraid that I will harm you? Zhen Qingchun smiled faintly. I have long believed you. You are not a liar. If you wanted to harm me, you could have done it when I was unconscious. Du Xiaofu looked at Zhen Qingchun and said calmly, I know you just want to recover as soon as possible, and I need you to break the seal on my spiritual root as soon as possible. Zhen Qingchun was secretly shocked. If an ordinary person knew about this situation, it would take a long time for them to calm down. They might also go to their elders immediately. But this abnormal kid in front of him actually had his own plan in such a short time. He did not even have the intention to alarm any elders or bystanders. Zhen Qingchun was right. Du Xiaofu did not have the intention to alarm any elders. The elders in the clan did not know that his spiritual root was sealed. According to Zhen Qingchun, the person who sealed his spiritual root was an extremely powerful expert. He was afraid that the people in the Du family could not do anything. It was useless to tell the Du family, and it might even alert the enemy. The only way was to become stronger. Only after becoming very strong would he be able to find out who had such a deep hatred for him. Acknowledge me as your teacher. According to our agreement, if I let you become a spiritual talisman master, you will acknowledge me as your teacher. Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu, I said that you let me become a spiritual talisman master first. I did not say that I must acknowledge you as my teacher. Du Xiaofu looked at Zhen Qingchun and said seriously. Zhen Qingchun's expression suddenly became ugly. He said angrily, You brat, are you trying to cheat? I don't mean to cheat. You thought too much at the beginning. Du Xiaofu said seriously. If he acknowledged Zhen Qingchun as his teacher, he would have to listen to that wretched guy's words in the future. If he did not listen, he would inevitably have a reputation of not respecting his teacher. Du Xiaofu did not want to fall into that trap. Good boy, you think that you can rely on me now that you have learned my Tai Soul mantra? Let me tell you, from now on, don't expect me to teach you anything that I have learned. Don't even think about unlocking the seal on your spiritual root. Zhen Qingchun said fiercely. At the beginning, who knew how many experts knelt in front of him to acknowledge him as their master? But he did not care. But now, this brat in front of him was actually disdainful of him. Thank you to beautiful sister No Tears for your reward. Martial God World number 16 will be on the shelves. When the time comes, the old rules will definitely explode. I also continue to invite brothers who do not have a bookshelf to add this book to the bookshelf. The daily recommendation ticket is also very important. Thank you everyone. Chapter 60. Then don't even think about recovering. Even if I can't become a talisman master, I can still practice martial arts. As for you, without my help, I believe it will be very difficult for you to recover. Du Xiaofu was not threatened by Zhen Qingchun at all. At worst, we will break up. Zhen Qingchun was not someone to be trifled with. He had lived for so many years and was not someone who would be easily led by the nose. He stared at Du Xiaofu and said, If you don't become my disciple today, I won't teach you. Don't be so ruthless. Du Xiaofu looked at Zhen Qingchun and smiled. We can't be master and disciple, but we can still be brothers. Let's become sworn brothers. You look too young. I look older than you. I will be the older brother, and you will be the younger brother. What do you think? Zhen Qingchun, brother, don't run into the pagoda. It's also good for us to become sworn brothers. At worst, you can be the older brother on odd days, and I can be the older brother on even days. What do you think? That way, you won't lose out. 6 hours later, in the valley behind the Du family's mountain, Du Xiaofu respectfully knelt on the ground. He looked at the sky and said, The heavens above and the earth below, I, Du Xiaofu, swear today that I will become sworn brothers with Zhen Qingchun. As the older brother, I have the obligation to take care of the younger brother, love the younger brother, and take care of the younger brother. The younger brother will take care of the older brother according to the situation. We will share fortune and misfortune together. If I violate this oath, I will be struck by lightning. My head will grow pus. My feet will grow ulcers, and my buttocks will grow hemorrhoids. Du Xiaofu, what do you mean by the older brother has the obligation to take care of the younger brother, love the younger brother, and the younger brother will take care of the older brother according to the situation? Zhang Qingquan's illusory body was also kneeling on the ground. He glared at Du Xiaofu fiercely. After 6 hours, under Du Xiaofu's various threats and promises, he was finally forced to compromise and agree to become sworn brothers. The only thing he won was that he would always be the big brother, whether it was a single day or a double day. However, at this moment, Zhang Qingquan only felt very aggrieved, absolutely aggrieved. What kind of status did he have? If word of this got out, even if he recovered to his prime, he would not be able to show his old face to anyone. Du Xiaofu turned around and smiled at Zhang Qingquan. Brother Qingquan, hurry up and worship him. As an older brother, I naturally have to take care of my younger brother. Anyway, you won't lose out. Zhang Qingquan was speechless. He had no choice but to follow Du Xiaofu and kowtow to the heavens 3 times, reciting the oath. However, he was also speechless when he mentioned that his head had pus, his feet had ulcers, and the middle of his buttocks had hemorrhoids. The ceremony is complete. From now on, we are brothers. From now on, I'm really envious of you. Du Xiaofu stood up with a smile on his face. He felt that he was at a disadvantage by becoming Zhang Qingquan's disciple. However, if he did not become Zhang Qingquan's disciple, Zhang Qingquan would not agree. Du Xiaofu was also afraid that Zhang Qingquan would not teach him seriously. However, now that they had become sworn brothers, everything was different. After swearing the oath, he was not afraid that Zhang Qingquan would cheat him. What are you envious of? Zhang Qingquan stood up. His illusory face and eyes still looked extremely aggrieved. I'm envious of you being my sworn big brother. I'm envious of you having a sworn brother like me in the future. I'm really envious. Du Xiaofu's face was serious. After a long time, Zhang Qingquan's aggrieved face opened his mouth and spat out 2 words to Du Xiaofu. Go to hell. Du Xiaofu smiled and did not mind. He looked at Zhang Qingquan and said, Brother Qingquan, we are already brothers. As an older brother, you can't not give me a greeting gift, right? Do you really not have any good martial skills or spiritual weapons? Spiritual herbs are also fine. I don't mind. Fiercely glaring at Du Xiaofu, Zhang Qingquan simply didn't want to continue the conversation with this brat. He said, tomorrow, go buy some things. Those spiritual medicines that can strengthen spiritual roots are no longer of any use to you. You need to find some other spiritual medicines. I want you to progress faster on the path of martial arts. In addition, from tomorrow onwards, I will formally teach you how to refine medicine and array glyphs. I will also teach you how to refine some spiritual medicines so that you can progress faster on the path of martial arts. Only when your strength is strong can you help me find some things. Just relying on your Xian Qi alone won't allow me to recover quickly. Okay. Du Xiaofu's face regained its color. He needed to become stronger now. He needed to work hard to become stronger. The next morning, Du Xiaofu once again went to the Du family enterprise. According to Zhang Qingquan's list, he bought a lot of spiritual herbs and other things. The 6,000 cultivation coins in his cultivation coin card was far from enough. Du Xiaofu finally reluctantly took out a lot of good things from his Qingquan bag and sold them. Only then did he pay off the bill for the spiritual herbs and other things he needed to buy. In the morning, the streets of Stone City were already bustling with activity. When Du Xiaofu left the Du family enterprise and went out of the textile city, he was blocked by a dozen young men and women. The people who came looked hurried. Looking at the situation, it seemed that they had already planned this beforehand. They knew that he was in the textile city, so they hurried over. Among the dozen young men and women, there was a young man in his 20s with many exquisite and expensive accessories hanging on his waist. His appearance was quite good, but his face was a little pale, which made him look a little delicate. Looking at Du Xiaofu, he indifferently said, You are Du Xiaofu from the Du family? Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at the dozen people who came over. Among them, there were a few who were quite familiar. He seemed to have met them when he was young. The one who spoke should be a member of the Bai family. He slightly raised his eyes and said, Bai Tianming, do you need something? Xiaolu, this guy should be Du Xiaofu. We met when we were young. After hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the delicate young man did not reply to Du Xiaofu. Instead, he enthusiastically said to an 18 or 19-year-old girl beside him, The girl's gaze had already fallen on Du Xiaofu. Her face was quite beautiful. She pursed her lips and looked at Du Xiaofu with a smile. She slightly snorted and said in a low voice, "Brother Zhuolong also said that he is the #1 person in the younger generation of our 5 great families." Humph. I think that the man that Yi Zijin likes is only Ozo. A fool who has been dumb for 10 years. How strong can he be? The girl's voice was a little gloomy and ear-piercing, which was unpleasant to the ears. Xiaolu, Yi Zijin naturally cannot be compared to you. I think that Zhuolong is also full of nonsense. Bai Tianming had been tightly surrounding the girl. Bai Tianming, don't insult Brother Zhuolong. The girl's expression suddenly changed. Xiaolu, didn't Zhuolong say that this guy is the #1 person in the younger generation of our 5 great families? I will now prove to you that Zhuolong is also full of nonsense. Hearing the girl's words, Bai Tianming was stunned. Then, a gloomy expression quietly flashed across his delicate face. Humph, didn't you want to teach this Du Xiaofu a lesson? The girl slightly raised her head and sneered at Du Xiaofu. She disdainfully curled her lips and turned to Bai Tianming, who had a gloomy expression, and said, "If you lose to that guy, don't appear beside me in the future. I will make him kneel and beg for mercy." Bai Tianming looked at Du Xiaofu, as if he wanted to vent his dissatisfaction and resentment on Du Xiaofu. The corner of his mouth twitched and a ruthless expression appeared on his feminine face. Du Xiaofu, everyone says that you are the #1 person in the younger generation of the 5 great families. Today, I will let them know how shallow Yi Zijin and Zhuolong's vision is. Chapter 61. Translator. H2-H2 Mr. Bai Tianming's eyes flashed coldly as he stomped his foot. His figure turned into a ghostly shadow and appeared in front of Du Xiaofu, his Xiantian realm aura surging out. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. This Bai Tianming's cultivation was higher than Qi Hu's. His Xiantian realm aura was definitely not low among the younger generation. Something interesting is about to happen. It seems like Bai Tianming of the Bai family and Qin Xiaolu of the Qin family are going to deal with Du Xiaofu of the Du family. A few days ago, it was said that Qi Hu of the Qi family was beaten up by Du Xiaofu. The Qi family went to the Du family but didn't manage to gain any advantage. Qi Long also accidentally told others that Du Xiaofu of the Du family is the #1 person among the younger generation of the 5 great families. So that's Du Xiaofu of the Du family? On the surrounding streets, following the commotion, it immediately attracted a lot of onlookers. In the short span of a breath, Bai Tianming appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. His indifferent and gloomy face sneered. Profound qi surged as he clenched his fist. The air crackled and exploded as his fist blasted towards Du Xiaofu. Qi. However, just as Bai Tianming's fist appeared in front of Du Xiaofu's figure disappeared from Bai Tianming's sight. In that short span of time, the onlookers only saw a blur before Du Xiaofu's figure appeared behind Bai Tianming like a ghost. At the same time, a fist imprint mixed with a terrifying gale smashed towards Bai Tianming's back. Bang bang. Wherever the fist passed, 13 consecutive sounds resounded in the air. It seems to be the Du family's oscillating fist, but why is it so powerful? Among the spectators, there were some with extraordinary eyesight, and some of them actually saw through the origin of Du Xiaofu's martial skill. In the short span of a breath, Bai Tianming had no time to react. When Du Xiaofu's fist made its 13th sound, it landed solidly on Bai Tianming's back under the horrified gazes of the surrounding onlookers. Puchi. The terrifying tidal wave like wind directly caused Bai Tianming's body to be thrown into the air like a kite with a broken string. He was like a fragile bamboo that was blown away by a gale. Finally, he violently smashed into the ground over 10 meters away. He spat out large mouthfuls of blood as shock surged in his eyes. The Bai family's Bai Tianming couldn't even withstand a single blow from Du Xiaofu. The surrounding onlookers were dumbfounded as they stared at Bai Tianming, who had fallen to the ground. Their faces were filled with disbelief. The Bai family's Bai Tianming was so easily defeated. In any case, he was at the mysterious Xiantian realm. Even in the entire Stone City, he could be considered as one of the strongest. Du Xiaofu, I want to see how strong the person that Yi Zijin has chosen is. Almost at the same time Bai Tianming's body landed on the ground, a cold shout suddenly rang out not far from Du Xiaofu's side. The Qin clan's Qin Xiaolu held a 3-foot-long green longsword in her hand. She tapped the ground with the tip of her foot, and a surge of profound qi surged. Borrowing the strength of this profound qi, her graceful and delicate body pounced towards Du Xiaofu with lightning speed. Qianqian's hand formed a sword sign, and the long sword in her hand moved. The sword light was dazzling and carried runes. Several sword lights immediately shot towards Du Xiaofu, head to tail. Obviously, this Qin Lu had already expected that Bai Tianming would be unable to deal with Du Xiaofu. Her attack was considered a sneak attack. However, she probably didn't expect that Bai Tianming would be sent flying in a single exchange. However, her sword was already like an arrow on the bow. Curtain of rain sword art. The sword light pierced through the air as if it was tearing space apart. Waves of profound energy split from the tip of the sword like a meteor falling from the sky. It formed an arc of sword light that enveloped Du Xiaofu. Is she also at the Xiantian realm? Du Xiaofu frowned. This Qin family's woman was also at the Xiantian realm. However, with that extraordinary longsword, it was undoubtedly much stronger than Bai Tianming's previous attack. Bai Tianming was obviously careless when he made his move. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to defeat him in a single move. However, this Qin family's woman was much more sinister than Bai Tianming. She didn't hold back at all when she made her move. Seeing the energy sword beam approaching, the profound energy beneath Du Xiaofu's feet surged, and with the help of the strength Qi's pushing force, his body suddenly retreated explosively. The energy sword beam just happened to graze the surface of his body, and the sharp sword beam's wind also caused his skin to feel a piercing pain. Humph! Qin Xiaolu coldly snorted, as if she didn't expect Du Xiaofu's speed to be so fast. She changed her sword art and nimbly landed back on the ground. Her jade-like hand waved horizontally. Along with the wave of her hand, the 3-foot-long long sword in her hand trembled. Another sword light directly shot towards Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu's gaze turned a little gloomy. He condensed his hand seals and a faint golden profound energy suddenly surged around his body. The enormous energy that was suddenly released caused the faces of the surrounding spectators to be filled with astonishment. Profound energy surged as a palm print retreated from Du Xiaofu's palm. Like the stormy wave's palm, layers of terrifying energy fluctuations directly smashed onto Qin Xiaolu's sword light under many astonished gazes. Bang! When the two collided, the sound of an energy explosion rang out. The fierce sword light was directly destroyed by the former in the most barbaric manner. It was a kind of forceful suppression. Crack! Immediately after, a crisp cracking sound rang out. The 3-foot-long longsword in Qin Xiaolu's hand was directly broken. Everyone was stunned. The longsword in Qin Xiaolu's hand wasn't an ordinary item. Although it hadn't reached the level of a spiritual artifact, it was probably infinitely close to one. At this moment, it was actually directly broken. Just how powerful was Du Xiaofu's strength? When the longsword was broken, Qin Xiaolu's body was suddenly sent flying in the midst of the stormy waves of energy fluctuations. After flying for several meters, she quickly displayed a movement martial skill. Her body rapidly rotated in the air. When her body landed on the ground, the tip of her foot touched the ground. Her body seemed to glide. Only then did she instantly retreat for nearly 10 meters before stabilizing her delicate body. Crack, crack. As Qin Xiaolu's delicate body retreated, every step she took caused the stone pavement on the street to emit a crack, crack sound. Gravel flew, and dust violently shot out. Cracks spread out from the dust under her feet. Poochie. When her delicate body finally stabilized, the broken sword in Qin Xiaolu's hand fell onto the street. The palm that was holding the sword hilt was trembling and fresh blood was spurting out from her mouth. Her face was deathly pale. Du Xiaofu looked at Bai Tianming and Qin Xiaolu, who were crawling up and directly walked to their side. The surrounding young men and women actually didn't dare to step forward. Bai Tianming and Qin Xiaolu weren't a match for him. How would they dare to go up and look for a beating? What are you trying to do? Don't come over. Looking at the approaching Du Xiaofu, Qin Xiaolu and Bai Tianming's deathly pale faces became extremely ugly. However, it seemed that their injuries were too severe. Even retreating seemed to be strenuous. By Tianming, Qin Xiaolu, the two of you must have forgotten to take your medicine today. Naturally, you will have to pay a price. Du Xiaofu didn't stop his footsteps. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he directly took out a Qinkuan pouch from their clothes. To be able to carry a Qinkuan pouch, it proved that the two of them definitely didn't have an ordinary status in their respective families. Looking on helplessly as Du Xiaofu took away their Qinkuan pouches, Bai Tianming and Qin Xiaolu's expressions were unsightly. However, there was nothing they could do. Du Xiaofu, you? Especially Qin Xiaolu. She looked on helplessly as Du Xiaofu actually ignored the fact that men and women shouldn't touch each other. He reached his hand into her long skirt and took away the Qinkuan pouch. She was so angry that her delicate face changed color. Dark red blood once again flowed out from the corner of her mouth. The next time you provoke me, I won't be as polite as today. Looking at the bewildered Bai Tianming and Qin Xiaolu, Du Xiaofu very naturally kept the two Qinkuan pouches in his clothes under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Then, he turned around and walked away. So handsome. He's really too cool. I didn't know that the Du family had such a young master. Among the onlookers on the street, many young girls looked at the tall and straight figure walking away with infatuation in their eyes. Du Xiaofu from the Du family lives up to his reputation. The Bai and Qin families have also fallen this time. Looks like the Du family will be the champion of the competition between the 5 great families this time. As Du Xiaofu walked away, the surrounding onlookers started to discuss spiritedly. Among the crowd, there were several figures wearing long robes that covered their foreheads. They seemed to have deliberately disguised themselves. Their gazes also fell on the back of the departing figure. Today's afternoon chapter was updated 1.5 hours late. Xiaoyu apologizes to everyone. There won't be many updates for the next few days. I'm preparing for the 16th chapter. At that time, Xiaoyu will have a huge explosion. After the release, I'll also maintain a high speed of updates. Brothers, please forgive me for these few days of updates. Chapter 62. Liang Qing, you were also defeated by Du Xiaofu in one move? A young man in his 20s looked at another young man beside him and asked, Young princess, it's Du Xiaofu. Rumor has it that he has been suffering from dementia for 10 years, but I didn't expect him to be so powerful. The young man was very respectful and his face was a little pale. If Du Xiaofu saw him now, he would definitely recognize him as the imperial knight who was beaten by him a few days ago in the Du family. He was also Du Hao's cousin. I said, Don't call me young princess outside. I'm just your captain. The young man smiled faintly. His slender figure and handsome face made people feel comfortable looking at him. Yes, captain. What should we do now? Liang Qing bowed and nodded. His eyes were full of respect for the young man. The Yi family is not willing to cooperate, and the Feng family has a deep conspiracy. The girl from the Bai family is not bad. She's almost as good as Easy Jean, but it's a pity that there are thorns in her rose. It takes some time. In order to get what we want early, it seems that we have to go to the Qin family. The young man looked at Qin Xiaolu in the crowd with a dirty smile. He said softly, The girl from the Qin family is not bad. At least she's smart. As long as we get what we want, no matter if it's the girl from the Yi family or the girl from the Qin family, where can they escape to? This time, the captain is going to take action personally. It's a pity that the Yi family and the Du family don't know how to appreciate favors. Liang Qing's face was gloomy. He went to the Du family with a mission. If he could complete the mission, the young princess would think more highly of him. Unfortunately, he stumbled in front of Du Xiaofu. When he mentioned this matter to his uncle, it was immediately rejected. If he could have dealt with Du Xiaofu at that time, perhaps the result would have been different. Let's go. There are some things we need to prepare. The young man smiled and covered his head with the hood of his robe. He left the crowd without leaving a trace. Several people followed him quietly. In the valley behind the Du family's mountain, Du Xiaofu poured out the contents of the 2 Qinkuan bags in front of him onto the ground. His eyebrows furrowed, clearly somewhat disappointed. After inspecting the items, he softly said, There is actually nothing valuable in these 2 fellows' Qinkuan bags. Brat, Just what were you doing in your previous life? You want to leave a mark when the wind blows and pluck the feathers of the wild goose when it flies. You didn't even let go of the cosmos pouches of two little Sciention stage fellows. If this were to spread out, I would lose all my face because of you. Zhen Qingquan's illusory figure glared at Du Xiaofu. He was speechless at this guy. He was simply the reincarnation of a bandit. If you don't manage the house, you don't know the cost of firewood and rice. The medicinal herbs you asked me to buy are not ordinary expensive. If it weren't for the harvest in the Savage Beast Mountain Range, I wouldn't have been able to afford it. If I don't think of a way now, I will have to rob you the next time you ask me to buy something. Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Jin Qingchun. He had been using his capital all this time. Naturally, he had to think of a way to earn some income. However, the Qingkuan bags of Bai Tianming and Qin Xiaolu were much worse than the one of Shouhu and that woman in the Savage Beast Mountain Range. But in any case, these two Qingkuan bags were worth some money. It's up to you whether you want to buy them or not. You are the one who is cultivating, not me. Zhen Qingchun rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu. He secretly decided that once he recovered, he would stay as far away from this brat as possible. He didn't want this bastard to ruin his reputation. Du Xiaofu skillfully put away the two Qingkuan bags. He smiled at Jin Qingchun and said, "You can only recover faster if I become stronger. Don't make it seem like you are doing it for me. Moreover, you are now my big brother. You have the obligation to take care of me and protect me. Are you going to violate your oath? Take out all the spiritual herbs. Today, I will officially teach you how to refine medicine." Zhen Qingchun didn't want to talk nonsense with Du Xiaofu anymore. He didn't want to talk to this abnormal brat anymore. He didn't want to feel wronged again. "It's all ready." Du Xiaofu smiled and took out the spiritual herbs that had been prepared in the Qingkuan bag. He suddenly became excited. He looked at Zhen Qingchun expectantly and asked weakly, "Brother Qingchun, when will you teach me how to refine talismans? Are you familiar with refining weapons? I want to try refining weapons." "Don't bite off more than you can chew. You still have to cultivate martial arts. Don't try to be proficient in everything when the time comes. You don't know how many peerless geniuses are proud and arrogant. They want to dabble in everything, but in the end, they achieve nothing. They are not proficient in anything. Instead, they hurt themselves." Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu seriously. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu also became serious and said, "I understand. I will keep it in mind." "Yes, it's good that you understand. If you pass the test of alchemy, I will naturally teach you how to use talismans. As for how much you can learn from me, that will depend on your own ability." Jin Qingchun said, "I'm afraid you won't be able to teach me enough." Du Xiaofu laughed mischievously. Don't try to provoke me. If you have the ability to learn, I will teach you everything." Jin Qingchun rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu and said, "I will now teach you the knowledge of alchemy. Although your big brother specializes in talisman arrays and alchemy, I don't dare say that I have reached the peak of the world in alchemy, but I am still not comparable to ordinary alchemy talisman masters. The most important aspects of alchemy are the control of spiritual cauldrons and mental force. Understanding the habits and pharmacology of medicinal ingredients is also equally important. You can't do without either." In the valley, an illusory figure and a purple-gowned figure were sitting cross-legged. Du Xiaofu was listening to Zhen Qingquan's explanation with rapt attention. Sometimes he would nod, sometimes he would ask questions. One was imparting knowledge, while the other was listening attentively. Time slowly passed by. Not far away, the king's scaled demon tiger was lazily lying on a rock. It would occasionally open its eyes to look at the two people in the valley before continuing its lazy sleep. The drizzling rain sprinkled on the surface of the lake, creating slight ripples. This was a dusk with a thin mist. In the pavilion by the lake, a young girl's clothes fluttered in the wind. She was elegant, and her complexion was extremely beautiful. She was about 18 or 19 years old, and wore a light purple robe. Standing in the pavilion, accompanied by the thin mist and drizzle, she looked like a fairy, causing ripples in one's heart. "Sister, you must avenge me. That Du Xiaofu bullied me too much. He didn't put me in his eyes." Behind the young girl, Bai Tianming's face was pale, and he said to the young girl with an aggrieved face. Bai Tsai turned her head, her pair of clear eyes gazing at Bai Tianming. She slightly sighed and said, Big brother, can't you see that you have been used by Qin Xiaolu? Qin Xiaolu's heart is with Shuolong. That kind of woman is not suitable for you. If you have the ability, you should pursue Yi Zijin. If you can enter her eyes, my Bai family will not be so passive now. Bai Tianming's face was green and red. He looked at Bai Tsai and said unwillingly, Sister, are we just going to let that Du Xiaofu go like this? If this news spreads out, my Bai family will suffer a loss, and others will think that my Bai family is afraid of the Du family. It will not be good for my Bai family's reputation. Some people want us to do this. They want us to stand out. Bai Tsai's clear eyes gazed at the misty lake. She slightly opened her red lips and said softly, only the final winner can explain everything. What does it matter if we win or lose now? Sister, you deliberately don't want to make a move because Xiaolu is uncomfortable, right? I am going to find father. Bai Tianming saw that his sister was unmoved, so he waved his sleeves and left unwillingly. Sigh. Bai Tsai slightly sighed and continued to gaze at the misty lake. After a while, she murmured, Du Xiaofu of the Du family. Did he deliberately endure for 10 years, or was he hidden by the Du family? Or did something happen recently? I don't know how he compares to the real Zhuolong. It seems that this time, the competition will be lively. The drizzle was drizzling, and the night was pitch black. The pitter-patter of the rain was like a long song in the dark night. Zhuolong of the Zhua family, Bai Tsai of the Bai family, these two guys have hidden their strength well. In the long corridor of the courtyard, a graceful figure was leaning against the wall. Under her long skirt, the outline of a young girl's delicate curve was faintly formed. The curve was graceful and moving, revealing a youthful aura. Chapter 63. Zijin, rest early on a rainy day. Don't catch a cold. Yi Baolin walked over lightly, a loving smile on his handsome face, tinged with a hint of emotion. Yi Zijin lifted her head and held her father's hand affectionately. She lifted her head and blinked her bright black eyes, saying sweetly, Dad, what are you sighing about? Ha. Yi Baolin chuckled, his finger lightly scratching the bridge of her delicate nose. He smiled and said, I'm sighing that after all these years, I've finally raised my daughter into an adult, and she's even grown up to be so beautiful and elegant. Only, my heart aches every time I look at her, thinking to myself that sooner or later, my precious daughter will be cheated away by some bastard brat. My heart just feels uncomfortable. Dad, what are you talking about? I'll never marry. I'll stay by your side forever. Yi Zijin's face was flushed red as she said in a displeased tone. Then, she leaned lightly on her father's arm, quietly gazing at the hazy drizzle under the night sky. Not marrying won't do. Dad can't support you forever. When your mother left, she said that all men are bastards. But in the future, she'll find you a better bastard to marry, and then she'll be able to leave in peace, said Yi Baolin softly. Yi Zijin was amused by her father's words. She smiled sweetly, then turned around. Her dark brows furrowed slightly, and she said sadly, Dad, you miss Mother, don't you? Yes, I miss her. Yi Baolin was slightly absent-minded. He sighed softly, then gazed at the delicate face in front of him and said, You look more and more like your mother. Just as pretty, just as smart. If your mother knew, she would definitely be very happy. What mother would be happiest about is marrying you in this life. Yi Zijin leaned lightly on her father's arm. She knew that her father often thought of her mother, but sadly, there were joys and sorrows in the world, just like how the moon waxed and waned, unable to be stopped. All right, let's not talk about these things. Have you discovered anything recently? Yi Baolin patted his beloved daughter's hand with a smile on his face. With such a beloved daughter by his side, it was enough to comfort him. From the looks of it, the Yun clan, the Qin clan, and the Bai clan all want to get their hands on us. I just don't know how their preparations are going. Do they really think they have the confidence to deal with our Yi clan? Yi Zijin asked. The smile on Yi Baolin's face gradually faded as he replied, After so many years, they have never given up. I'm afraid they have been preparing for who knows how many years. How could they give up now? Do they really think that my Yi family is easy to deal with? Yi Zijin's voice fell. She quietly gazed at the drizzle under the night sky, not saying anything else. It was another morning after the rain. The ground had been washed, and the air was exceptionally fresh. It was as if the fragrance of the earth was drifting through the air. On a rock at the back of the mountain of the Dew clan, a purple-robed youth sat cross-legged. His hands were condensed into a cultivation seal, and his eyes were slightly closed. His body was wrapped in a pale golden light, causing the rock to be enveloped by the light to be clean. Last night's rain had not been able to wet it at all. Waves of pale golden energy shuttled in and out of his body like countless tiny spiritual snakes. Everything seemed extremely mysterious and magical. On the rock, the purple-robed youth's chest rose and fell slightly. His breathing was long and even. As time slowly passed, there was a kind of fluctuation in the surroundings that was difficult to see with the naked eye. It seemed that there was some kind of energy fluctuation in the world. This energy was entering the youth's body through his breathing, causing his skin to emit a pale golden brilliance. There were faint talisman engravings flickering on the surface of his body. Abnormal. This kid must be abnormal. Not far away, beside the king's scaled demonic tiger, the illusory Zhan Qingchun looked at the purple-robed figure sitting cross-legged on the rock in the distance and kept muttering. More than half a month had passed, and everything was out of Zhan Qingchun's expectations. He had never thought that the abnormal kid could make such great progress in alchemy. There was no need for him to explain too much, and the abnormal kid could infer many things from one example. His understanding was extremely thorough, and he had also made great progress in martial arts cultivation. Phew! When it was noon, the purple-robed youth on the rock finally stopped cultivating. The golden light around his body was completely withdrawn into his body. When he spat out the last wisp of turbid air from his mouth, his eyelashes moved slightly. His clear eyes suddenly opened, and there was a pale golden light flashing in his eyes. His gaze was sharp and deep. The elixir refined by Brother Qingchun is really good. With this progress, I'm afraid it won't take long for me to break through to the nirvana realm. Feeling the abundant, profound qi in his body, Du Xiaofu had a smile on his face. The elixir refined by Zhen Qingchun was extremely effective. Every time he took it, his cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort, and he would make great progress. This made Du Xiaofu admire Brother Qingchun even more. Continue to work hard and strive to make a breakthrough as soon as possible, Du Xiaofu muttered softly. He stretched his body and his figure suddenly leaped away from the rock. This bastard kid is really abnormal. 2 days later, when Zhen Qingchun saw Du Xiaofu who had consumed a lot of elixirs, he was smashing his body against the cliff in a masochistic manner, smashing large chunks of hard rocks into powder. He was dumbfounded. With Zhen Qingchun's insight, how could he not know how powerful Du Xiaofu's body was at the moment? He was just like a young rock in human form. Such a powerful body was absolutely impossible for a normal human to exist. Even among the ancient powers of the human race, it was impossible for them to have such an abnormal body cultivation method that could cultivate a person's body to such an abnormal level. Abnormal bastard. This bastard is abnormal. 3 days later, when Zhen Qingchun saw Du Xiaofu's spiritual furnace and talisman cauldron condensed by him, he was dumbfounded for a long time. Thinking back to when he was able to successfully use a spiritual furnace and talisman cauldron to refine elixirs, it took him no less than a few months to comprehend and cultivate. But this abnormal bastard did it in a dozen days. In particular, this guy was also practicing martial arts and the body cultivation method of the golden-winged Great Peng clan. He was simply multitasking. But the result was that this abnormal bastard had easily succeeded. He had only failed twice in the middle, and had destroyed a few thousand cultivation coins worth of medicinal ingredients. Back then, when he was still a rookie, he had failed 5 times in his first attempt at refining medicine, and had destroyed several tens of thousands of cultivation coins worth of medicinal ingredients. Time slowly passed, and the day of the contest between the younger generation of the 5 great clans was getting closer and closer. The whole Stone City became more and more lively, and the topics of discussion in the streets and alleys gradually revolved around the contest between the younger generation of the 5 great clans. The contest between the 5 great clans, according to the usual practice of previous years, was naturally unavoidable for the whole nation to bet on it. The outstanding youngsters of the 5 great clans were naturally the focus of everyone's bets. Of course, every time, there would naturally be some dark horses, but the ones that the bettors were most interested in were these dark horses, because they had the highest odds. If they bet on the right one, they would really make a fortune. Within the Stone City, there were many betting points, and it was rumored that many of the betting points were personally controlled by the 5 great clans. Every year, they could make a lot of money. In the betting points, almost all the information of the younger generation of the major clans was available. Because the information of the 5 great clans' younger generation contestants had to be submitted 7 days ago, the information of these contestants was not a secret, and the betting points were easy to obtain. This also made it convenient for the bettors to place their bets. This time, there were many people betting on the hot spots. The Yi clan's Yi Zijin, the Lao clan's Menglong and Menghu, the Qin clan's Qin Xiolu, the Bai clans Bai Tianming, and Bai Cai were the most popular among the bettors. However, the most popular ones naturally did not have high odds, but the bets were still extremely popular. Monday, recommendation tickets are also very important. Looking for recommendation tickets and coffee. The student who is reading Martial God's World, your temperament is extraordinary, and there is a faint aura of a king between your eyebrows. In the future, you will have great achievements. On the upper left corner of this book's homepage, there are the words "Add to the bookshelf." You can click on it. If it's accurate, I won't take a single cent. If it's not accurate, you can come back to me. Chapter 64. However, just as the competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans was about to begin, a piece of shocking news broke out in the Stone City. Firstly, the Du family had only sent one person to participate in the competition, and his name was Du Xiaofu. That foolish youth's name had long since shaken the entire Stone City. The second piece of shocking news was the engagement of the Qin family. The young mistress of the Qin family, Qin Xiaolu, was engaged to a youth named Chao Qitai. It was said that on the day of the engagement, many imperial knights had gathered outside the Qin family residence to guard it. The family heads and city lords of the various great clans had also personally come to the Qin family residence. It was not difficult for outsiders to know that the youth named Chao Qitai was definitely not an ordinary person. Even more unexpected was the news that Chao Qitai and Qin Xiaolu were engaged, and could be considered half a member of the Qin family. Therefore, in this competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans, Chao Qitai would also represent the Qin family. Standing on a pavilion in the Stone City and gazing into the distance, the hazy mountains in the distance were shrouded in a layer of light gauze. The shadows were indistinct, sometimes far, sometimes near, sometimes distant, like a few strokes of ink smeared across the blue horizon. Qin Xiaolu stood on the pavilion, quietly gazing into the distance. On her rather beautiful face, there were tears in her eyes, both real and illusory. I hate. After a long while, Qin Xiaolu's lips parted slightly as she spat out 2 short words. Her long sleeves gently wiped away the tears at the corners of her eyes. She knew that she had no other choice but to accept all of this. What are you doing standing here all alone? A rather refreshing and enchanting male voice sounded, following which a young man in a long gown appeared behind Qin Xiaolu. His figure was tall and slender. Coupled with his rather handsome face, he made people feel extremely comfortable looking at him. Chao Qitai, what are you doing here? Qin Xiaolu turned around, looking at the youth behind her. There was some displeasure in her eyes, and even a trace of resentment that did not leave a trace. Chao Qitai looked at Qin Xiaolu, still wearing a smile on his face. This smile was enough to make those love-struck girls lose their minds. He said softly, "You are my fiancé. I'm here to see you. Is that not okay? You should know that I didn't have a choice." Qin Xiaolu gently bit her lower lip with her pearly white teeth. She did not know why, but she felt an invisible pressure in front of this young man. This pressure caused her to feel very uncomfortable in her heart. "Of course I know that you have no choice, but I also know that you are now my fiancé, aren't you?" Chao Qitai smiled. "That's not my choice," said Qin Xiaolu, gritting her teeth. "I'll take my leave now." "Excuse me." She stepped over Chao Qitai and left. "My fiancé just arrived and you want to leave. Do you have something against me? An enchanting smile still hung on Chao Chi-tai's face. However, he shifted his feet slightly and intentionally blocked Qin Xiaolu's path. Chao Chi-tai, do you think you can restrict me just because you're my fiancé? You're not enough. Qin Xiaolu's pretty face immediately sunk. Her slender jade-like hands rapidly formed a dazzling arc, resembling two agile snakes. In the time it took to catch her breath, she had already formed a palm imprint that directly slammed towards Chao Chi-tai. The mysterious level of the Xiantian stage. Your talent is pretty good. As he spoke, Chao Chi-tai's expression became a lot more gloomy. His hand seals changed and his right hand gently drew a line. A faint energy shot out. Although it seemed slow, it was actually as fast as lightning. The energy fluctuation carried a dark and cold aura as it instantly slammed against Qin Xiaolu's palm imprint. Bang! The two attacks collided, causing the surrounding space to ripple. Qin Xiaolu's figure was also sent flying, her body violently landing several meters away. Ugh! A mouthful of dark red blood was spat out from her tender red lips. When Qin Xiaolu raised her head and looked at Chao Chi-tai again, a look of disbelief gushed out from her eyes. Her gaze was complicated, filled with shock and loss. I'm not the Bai family's Bai Tianming. You better understand your own position. Regardless of whether you are willing or not, your Qin family begged my Chao family to get engaged with you. If you have no choice, then accept the result. Honestly speaking, the reason why I'm getting engaged with you is because you have some beauty. Your Qin family also has some uses. Everyone is well aware of this. Otherwise, I don't lack women like you. Chao Chi-tai looked down at Qin Xiaolu from above. His expression did not change at all, as if the woman who had just been sent flying had nothing to do with him. His gaze was even filled with coldness as he softly said, I also know that you seem to have some thoughts about the Qi family's Huilong. However, don't blame me for not telling you. If I hear anything in the future, think of the consequences and your entire Qin family. You are not a stupid woman. I believe that you will know what to do. Qin Xiaolu stood up. When she saw the coldness in Chao Chi-tai's eyes, her delicate body trembled. Only now did she know what kind of person the man in front of her was. He was a demon. His previous gentleness and elegance was all an act. It seems that you have understood. It's good that you understand. After all, we will be husband and wife in the future. We are a family. The gloomy expression on Chao Chi-tai's face instantly disappeared. He gently walked in front of Qin Xiaolu and held her beautiful face in his hands. He lifted his sleeve and gently wiped away the dark red bloodstains on her red lips. He said in an extremely tender and heartbroken voice, I'm sorry, Xiaolu. I was a little too heavy-handed. Forgive me, I won't fight with you again next time. That Du Xiaofu hurt you last time. When the time comes, I'll help you make him pay the debt. Qin Xiaolu stood there in a daze. There was some uneasiness in her eyes as she allowed Chao Chi-tai to manipulate her. In the end, she was gently embraced by Chao Chi-tai. From afar, they looked like a couple who were deeply in love. Indeed, they were even more intimate than a couple. In the Du family, Du Xiaofu left early and returned late every day. Sometimes, he would not even appear for several days. For almost a month, Du Xiaofu spent 90% of his time in the back mountain. However, for Du Xiaofu, this month was a great harvest. Not only did he make substantial progress in alchemy and the cultivation of his mental strength, but he also made great progress in the cultivation of martial arts. However, whether it was in the cultivation of martial arts or talisman master, Zhen Qingchun even suppressed Du Xiaofu's speed of progress. According to Zhen Qingchun, whether it was martial arts or talisman master, the foundation was the most important thing. The foundation determined the height of the future. It was rumored that the descendants of the powerful forces in the ancient clans who possessed ancient inheritances would deliberately suppress their cultivation at the beginning to make their foundation as solid and perfect as possible. Once such a terrifying figure emerged, they would be invincible in the same realm. They could even kill opponents who were at a higher realm. This made Du Xiaofu extremely shocked. He could not help but be a little fascinated. He did not know how he would compare to his peers in the legendary great forces and clans. When the time came, would he be able to compare with those geniuses? Du Xiaofu also gained a lot of knowledge about talisman masters from Zhen Qingchun. It was an eye-opener for him. Occasionally, Zhen Xingchun would talk about some things outside. The more he knew, the more Du Xiaofu understood how important absolute strength was in this world. On the rock, Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged. A mysterious handprint was changing in his hands. At this moment, there were unpredictable circles of light lingering around his body. Traces of extremely special energy fluctuations also spread out from Du Xiaofu's forehead. These fluctuations were getting stronger and stronger. Can this abnormal bastard succeed? Not far away, Zhang Qingchuan's illusory figure looked at Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged on the rock. At this moment, his expression was extremely nervous and expectant. Chapter 65. Time passed slowly. Du Xiaofu's mysterious handprints changed faster and faster, and the energy fluctuations spreading out from between his eyebrows became more and more intense. This kind of intense fluctuation was actually not inferior to that of a warrior of the primordial realm. Zhen Xingchun, who was watching from a distance, became more and more nervous. A person's sea of marrow is called the upper dantian, and it is called Tai. It is the ancestral palace of a person. It is supreme, and it is the gathering of all suns and the capital of all deities. Suddenly, young Master Du murmured, and the last handprint condensed. Mysterious runes spread out from between his eyebrows and wrapped around his body in an incomparably wonderful way. Hula. At the same time, a mysterious energy began to bloom from Du Xiaofu's body. This mysterious energy fluctuation was like a dark chain, densely fluctuating from Du Xiaofu's body. Then, it wrapped around Du Xiaofu's body and instantly shattered the mysterious runes spreading out from between Du Xiaofu's eyebrows. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's slightly closed eyes began to distort ferociously. Blue veins appeared on his face, as if he was enduring some kind of great pain. This kind of pain was unbearable for his body. Qi. At the same time, mysterious light began to bloom from Du Xiaofu's body, and a magical light jumped out. Although the light was somewhat turbid and dim, it was connected to all the meridians and blood vessels in his body. Finally, it crisscrossed on the surface of Du Xiaofu's body and spread out a terrifying power, tightly wrapping the black chain. The martial vein spirit seal is protecting its owner. What kind of martial vein is this? In the distance, Zhang Qingchuan's eyes trembled violently. Even with his eyesight, he could not determine what level the martial vein was at. The martial vein spirit seal automatically protected its owner. This was not something an ordinary martial vein could do. It was obvious that the martial vein had not recovered much. If the martial vein fully recovered, how terrifying would it be? After a short moment of shock, Zhang Qingchun came back to his senses. His voice immediately reached Du Xiaofu's ears. Kid, you don't have to worry about the spiritual root seal. The spiritual root seal is now bound by your martial vein spirit mark. What you need to do is to open your Niwen Palace. The divine brain is the master of a body, the assembly of 100 gods, and the fusion of the Tao with the supreme mystery. The divine brain is the spirit of the whole body, the cave of the 100 gods, the mountain source of the fluid, the jade room of the soul essence. Only the divine brain can infuse emptiness into reality. The 10,000 voids stand upright, the smoke from 1,000 holes, the virtue of the heaven and earth, the cave of generosity, hence the name Niwen. Niwen is a spirit above the form. Du Xiaofu's ferocious and distorted face gradually recovered. The black energy chains around his body were bound by the huge pressure of the mysterious light. The mysterious runes in between his eyebrows surged out again. Walala! The runes overflowed with light, like a mantra hovering in the air. They flowed in the void and finally rushed into the space between his eyebrows again. This cycle continued endlessly, causing the fluctuations in between his eyebrows to become stronger and stronger. It seemed that a kind of vitality had been activated somewhere in between his eyebrows. Niwen is a spirit above the form. Open your Niwen Palace. Finally, Du Xiaofu's final seal condensed and transformed as a loud shout sounded out. The dense talisman markings in the surrounding space suddenly revolved without end and revolved around Du Xiaofu's body, fused with him, and then reorganized and arranged themselves before erupting with extremely brilliant and dazzling light. It was like a bright moon had soared through the sky, and in the end, it condensed into a deep hole that seemed to intend to swallow the surrounding space. Boom! A loud tremor rang out. The deep rune hole finally rushed into the space between Du Xiaofu's eyebrows. At the same time, a rich and abundant mental energy fluctuation rippled out from between Du Xiaofu's eyebrows. It swept out like a storm, causing the surrounding space to tremble and undulate. A wave of mental energy fluctuation wrapped around Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged, causing his body to ripple with spirit. It was as if he had transcended the mortal world and was full of vitality. It gave people the feeling of the birth of all living things and the beginning of the world. What a powerful mental energy! How can this abnormal bastard's mental energy be so abnormal? I'm afraid that he's an invincible existence in the same realm. Could it be related to the extraordinary spiritual root that was sealed? Zhang Qingchun softly muttered. His seemingly wretched face was filled with indescribable shock. How could he not feel that the mental energy fluctuation on Du Xiaofu's body was absolutely invincible in the same realm? The most important thing for a spiritual symbol master was mental energy, and this abnormal bastard's mental energy was also so powerful. He knew that this abnormal bastard also had the abnormal body of a human-shaped rock. In the future, if this bastard walked out of the stone city and stood in the boundless world, he would be able to look down on countless peerless peers of the same generation. He would be able to sweep away all the young geniuses in the world. After half an hour, the dark energy chains on Du Xiaofu's body automatically disappeared. The mysterious light net around his body also dissipated, and everything returned to normal. Chi. Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. His gaze was clear and bright, and it emitted a faint golden light. The runes were withdrawn, and his originally domineering temperament had an additional extraordinary aura at this moment. Is this the realm of a two-star spiritual symbol master? It's really strong. It's different from a warrior. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself as he felt the abundant mental energy in his mind's Niwen palace. Recently, he had finally made good progress in his soul symbol master cultivation. He had officially stepped into the initial stage of a two-star soul symbol master, which was equivalent to a practitioner at the initial stage of the Xiantian stage. How do you feel? Zhang Qingchuan's illusory figure arrived in front of Du Xiaofu. He looked at Du Xiaofu as if he was looking at a monster. Not bad. It would be better if I could break through a little faster, Du Xiaofu said with satisfaction. Zhang Qingchun stared at this abnormal bastard, as if there were countless crows floating over his head. It had only been a little more than a month, and this bastard had already stepped into the realm of a two-star spiritual symbol master. It seemed that he was still not satisfied. It was really infuriating to compare oneself with others. Although Du Xiaofu also had a lot of advantages and conveniences in the cultivation of a spiritual symbol master, because of his dual cultivation of martial arts, the difficulty had also increased. Spiritual symbol master and martial arts were both dual cultivation. Naturally, one's energy had to be divided more. However, this brat still managed to achieve it in just over a month. In today's world, from a beginner spiritual symbol master to a two-star spiritual symbol master, even those with the best spiritual roots would need several years. However, this bastard had done it in just over a month. This was more than abnormal. Moreover, Zhang Qingchun knew best that if she had not reminded Du Xiaofu every day to suppress his cultivation and build a good foundation, this abnormal brat would have already broken through in advance. Looking at Du Xiaofu, Zhang Qingchun did not want to be entangled with this abnormal bastard on the issue of cultivation time. Comparing oneself with others would only make one angry. The only thing that could comfort her was that no matter how strong this abnormal bastard was, he was still taught by her. After opening the Niwen Palace, you can be considered to have officially stepped into the level of a spiritual symbol master. You have also made good progress in alchemy, so, her voice paused for a moment. Zhang Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and rolled her eyes. She continued, from today onwards, I have decided to teach you talisman arrays. A two-star spiritual symbol master can also come into contact with some knowledge of talisman arrays. I have already said that I am a fast learner. Du Xiaofu laughed mischievously. His heart was filled with anticipation. Those legendary spiritual symbol masters, a single talisman array was enough to contend against an empire. A powerful talisman array was enough to overturn rivers and seas and change the color of heaven and earth. Zheng Qingquan's face twitched. She simply did not want to pay attention to this abnormal bastard. She continued, compared to refining weapons and alchemy, talisman arrays are even more vast. All living things in heaven and earth coexist with the 5 elements of heaven and earth. To become a talisman array master, you must first have an outstanding understanding of talisman arrays. You must comprehend the talisman arrays for your own use and adjust the talisman arrays for your own use. Talisman arrays are divided into illusion arrays, attack arrays, and defense arrays. The first thing you need to learn is to comprehend the talisman arrays of the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Listening to Zheng Qingquan's teachings, Du Xiaofu's determined face was as resolute as ever. His gaze was sharp and deep. Sometimes he nodded, sometimes he was deep in thought. Every time Zheng Qingquan was teaching, the king's scaled demon tiger would not be idle. It would quietly crawl beside Zheng Qingquan and Du Xiaofu, as if it was able to obtain some kind of benefit. Please recommend me. Chapter 66. The last rays of the sunset faded away as the world darkened. Night fell, and the blue sky was dotted with countless little stars. Du Xiaofu returned to the courtyard and took a bath. Then, he saw the steward of the backyard, saying that the clan master and second master wanted him to go there. First uncle, second uncle, are you looking for me? When Du Xiaofu arrived at the study room of his first uncle, Du Jinwu and second uncle Du Zhixiang were already sitting there. They were whispering something with a serious expression. Seeing Du Xiaofu's arrival, Du Zhixiang gestured for Du Xiaofu to sit down and talk. Then, he asked, Xiaofu, you have been living in seclusion these days and rarely come out. Are you busy cultivating? Your body seems to be getting stronger and stronger. Du Xiaofu sat upright on the chair beside Du Zhixiang. He nodded slightly and said, Anyway, I have nothing to do, so I'm cultivating in the back of the mountain. May I know why eldest uncle and second uncle asked me to come here? Have you forgotten that in 3 days, the competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans will begin? A smile appeared on Du Jinwu's slightly serious face. He looked at Du Xiaofu and softly asked, How are your preparations going? In 3 days? Du Xiaofu really did forget. Recently, he had been so focused on cultivating that he forgot to eat and sleep. He forgot about the competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans. Thinking about the thunder pool of the Yi clan, a smile appeared on his face as he said, I have been preparing for it. Du Jinwu looked at Du Xiaofu's eyes. There was no nervousness in those deep and sharp eyes. On the contrary, they were full of anticipation. This made him a little confused. Could it be that this brat had absolute confidence? Du Jinwu slightly raised his brows and said, Suahu of the Xi clan, Bai Tianming of the Bai clan, and Qin Xiaolu of the Qin clan are not your opponents. I know that your cultivation is not weak, but this time, there has been a little change. You have to be careful. Upon hearing this, Du Xiaofu immediately asked, Did something special happen? Du Zhixiang continued, There are some special circumstances. This time, you are the only participant from the Du family. You represent the Du family. Why am I alone? Du Xiaofu was puzzled. He had heard about the competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans in the past. Each of the 5 great clans had limited the number of participants to 15. The number could be less, but not more. Every time, there would be a full 15 people in the younger generation of the major clans. Even if there was no hope of winning the championship, it could still be considered as a form of training. It would also be of great benefit to their future cultivation. Du Jinwu helplessly smiled at Du Xiaofu and said, You still have the nerve to say that. Du Yin, Du Chong, and Du Hao were all injured by you. Until now, they have only recovered 50 to 60%. They can't go up. Du Yu and Du Shui have good potential. However, if they participate this time, they won't be able to participate in the next competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans. You also know that everyone can only participate once. Du Yu and Du Shui are the hope of the Du family in the next competition. It would be a loss for them to participate this time. Therefore, after discussing with your second uncle, we decided to let you represent the Du family in the competition. However, this will increase the pressure on you. You have offended the Bai family, the Tong family, and even the Qin family. When the time comes, it is very likely that you will be attacked by the other families. Du Xiaofu's expression was deep in thought. He knew a little about the rules of the competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans. Apart from the fact that they were not allowed to intentionally harm others' lives and use techniques that did not belong to them, there were no other rules. It was a complete free-for-all. Whoever stood on the stage in the end would be the winner. Only the final winner would be able to enter the lightning pool to cultivate. Under these rules, it was extremely important for the participants of a family to work together. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. Even the fragrance of wine is afraid of the depth of the alley. No matter how strong one was, if they were surrounded, they would still be unlucky. Why? Are you not confident? If you really can't do it, let Du and Du Shui go up as well. At least they can help you block some of the pressure. Du Zhixiong looked at Du Xiaofu's contemplative expression and thought that Du Xiaofu was not confident. He was also very clear that once they were surrounded, the consequences would be unimaginable. There's no need for that. I'll go alone. It'll be easier for me. Du Xiaofu raised his head and smiled. It seemed that he was not too worried. Xiaofu, this is not a joke. Even if the Yi clan can help you block one of the families, I believe that the remaining 2 families will surround and attack you. Du Zhenwu reminded Du Xiaofu, Uncle, I will do my best. If they want to surround and attack me, we will have to see if they have the ability. Du Xiaofu smiled indifferently. All right. Since you feel confident, as your uncle, I will naturally believe you. Du Zhenwu looked at that sharp and clear gaze and nodded his head. He continued to speak to Du Xiaofu. In addition, you have to pay attention to Chao Chi-tai from the Qin clan. This Chao Chi-tai might be your strongest opponent. Why would there be someone with the surname Chao in the Qin clan? Du Xiaofu did not understand. This Chao Chi-tai is the fiancé of the Qin clan's Qin Xiaolu. He is considered half a member of the Qin clan. He is also young, so he is also qualified to participate. You have to pay attention to his strength and identity. Du Zhixiong explained, we have received news that this Chao Chi-tai is young but extremely powerful. In addition, this person is the son of the Flowing Cloud County's princess, Chao Tianma. Flowing Cloud County. Du Xiaofu's eyes moved slightly. Flowing Cloud County was a county outside of Stone City. It contained more than 10 cities that were larger than Stone City. In the empire, there was a county above a city, a county above a county, and a county above a county. The county above a county was directly controlled by the empire. In Du Xiaofu's impression, Stone City had always been a strange existence. It was said that when the empire was founded, although Stone City was a small border city, it was not controlled by a county or a county. After a long time, no one knew the reason. They only knew that although Stone City was an empire city, no one could control it. Only the 5 major families stood in the city. The empire we are in is called the Stone Dragon Empire. Flowing Cloud County is close to our Stone City. In these years, Flowing Cloud County has always had the intention to take over our Stone City. However, they are wary of the existence of the Yi clan's Thunder Lion. This time, Flowing Cloud County interfered in the competition between the younger generation of the 5 major families and also formed a marriage alliance with the Qin clan. I suspect that they have other motives. With the Thunder Lion of the Yi clan, not only are the other families ready to make a move, the other powers are also restless. Sigh. Du Zhenwu's voice fell, and he couldn't help but sigh. After chatting with his uncles for a while, Du Xiaofu left the study room. When he returned to the courtyard, it was rare to see his drunkard father at home. However, as usual, he was drunk and holding his old wine jug while lying on the rattan chair, snoring evenly. Du Xiaofu took out a thin blanket from the room and covered his drunkard father with it. He then used a hot towel to gently wipe his face before returning to his room. Chapter 67. After pondering for a moment in the room, Du Xiaofu sat down cross-legged and condensed his hand seals. His body was enveloped in a faint golden light. 2 days later, Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged on a rock in the back mountain of the Du family. The faint golden light around his body was like a spirit snake that constantly wriggled in and out of his body. When these profound qi fluctuations reached their strongest, Du Xiaofu's hand seals changed. The abundant profound qi seemed to be sucked in by a violent force and began to be compressed into his body. It's about time. Let's reach the other side in one go. Looking at Du Xiaofu on the rock, Zhen Qingchun said softly. Du Xiaofu's hand seals condensed and changed again. He used his mental strength to sense and control the profound qi and fiercely pressed it into the god's watchtower. Ever since he became a spirit symbol master and cultivated the great One Soul technique, his mental strength had greatly increased. Du Xiaofu also felt that along with the great increase in mental strength, there were also great benefits in the cultivation and comprehension of martial arts. The two could be said to complement each other. Bang! A low muffled sound quietly came out from Du Xiaofu's god's watchtower. Following this sound, an invisible barrier quietly opened. A powerful aura suddenly swept out from Du Xiaofu's body like a storm. After a long time, everything calmed down. The purple-robed figure on the rock opened his sharp and deep eyes. Feeling the abundant, profound qi in his body, a smile appeared on his face as he muttered, "I've finally stepped onto the other side. I wonder how many benefits I can obtain after entering the lightning pool." At night, the bright moon hung high in the sky. The moon was bright and the stars were dim. The night sky was clear, and it was a rare good day. This night was destined to be a night of tension and anticipation for many people in the Stone City. When the darkness before dawn passed, there were people walking out of the streets of the Stone City. More and more people were walking towards the square in the middle of the city. Today was the day of the competition between the younger generation of the 5 great clans. If they were late, there wouldn't be any good seats left. The population of the entire Stone City was not small. As the younger generation of the 5 great clans competed, this grand event that only happened once every few years was the most lively event in the Stone City. Naturally, there was a sea of people. When the sky had just brightened, the vast plaza in the middle of the Stone City was already packed with people. As this was a grand occasion for the younger generation of the 5 great clans to compete, the 5 great clans had already dispatched many people to the plaza to maintain order. Of course, this was only for show and ostentation. In the Stone City, who would dare to cause trouble under the eyes of the 5 great clans? Unless they didn't want to live anymore, that would be the case. As time slowly passed, figures began to flicker through the special entrance in the corner of the square. Many figures appeared, immediately causing a chain reaction among the crowd. Look, the people of the Bai family are here. The head of the Bai family, Bai Jiru, the young master of the Bai family, Bai Tianming, and the second miss of the Bai family, Bai Cai. The people from the Qin clan are also here. The one in front is the Qin clan's patriarch, Qin Zongqiang, and the young lady of the Qin clan, Qin Xiaolu. The one beside them seems to be that Chao Qitai. I heard that he has a great background. Chao Qitai is a talent. The Qin clan has found a good son-in-law. The people from the Ran clan are also here. The head of the Ran clan, Ran Qingsong, and the 2 brothers, Ran Long and Ran Hu, are here. Following the commotion of the figures around the plaza, the people of the Bai family, the Ran family, and the Qin family slowly arrived. After the experts of the various clans met, they all politely exchanged greetings, and then walked to the high seats that had been arranged in the plaza. Behind them, many young men and women stood quietly. Their temperaments were extraordinary, and there were even many shouts coming from all around the plaza. Many graceful young girls and young talents looked at the extraordinary young men and women behind the various clans with shyness and admiration in their eyes. The people of the Du family are also here. The head of the Du family, Du Zhixiang, and the second master of the Du family, Du Zhenwu, are both here. The one in the purple robe is Du Xiaofu. I heard that this time, he is the only representative of the Du family. When Du Xiaofu arrived at the plaza with his uncles, he was shocked to see the hundreds of thousands of spectators around the vast plaza. "Xiaofu, don't be nervous. Relax a little." Du Zhixiang patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder and said. Du Xiaofu smiled slightly. He was a little shocked, but not nervous. He just didn't expect it to be so lively. Xiaofu, the fat man on the left who looks gentle, is the head of the Bai family, Bai Jiru. Although he looks gentle, he is not a kind person. He is full of cunning. The one behind him is his son, Bai Tianming. I heard that you have already beaten him up. However, you have to pay more attention to Bai Jiru's daughter, Bai Tsai. It is said that Bai Tsai is better than her brother in both talent and wisdom. Du Zhisheng whispered in Du Xiaofu's ear, "You should know the people of the Feng family. The one next to them is from the Qin family. The one in the middle who looks a little gloomy is the head of the Qin family, Qin Zengqiang. You have also beaten Qin Xiaolu. The young man in the long robe is Chao Chitai. You have to pay more attention." Upon hearing this, Du Xiaofu's gaze unnoticeably landed on the lineup of the 3 great clans that had already arrived. Each clan had brought more than 100 people. In the Bai family's lineup, a gentle middle-aged man in a scholarly robe should be Bai Jiru. Beside Bai Tianming, a woman with spirit aura should be Bai Tsai. Du Xiaofu already knew a lot of people of the Feng family. Finally, his eyes fell on the Qin family's lineup. Qin Zongqiang was sitting in the middle. His face looked quite gloomy, as if everyone owed him money. Du Xiaofu had already seen Qin Xiaolu behind him. While Du Xiaofu was sizing them up, he suddenly felt a lot of eyes fall on him. He raised his head and looked over. Among them were Bai Tsai, Bai Tianming, Qin Xiaolu, Chen Long, Ho Hu, and others. The one who caused Du Xiaofu's expression to change was the rather handsome young man beside Qin Xiaolu. For some unknown reason, this young man's gaze caused Du Xiaofu's heart to ripple for no reason. Is this Chao Chitai? He seems to be hiding his cultivation. Du Xiaofu thought. Brother Du, you're late. As Du Jinwu and the others of the Du family arrived, Qin Zongqiang and Qin Zongqiang of the Bai family stood up to greet them. However, Yun Qingsong of the Feng family glanced at the people of the Du family and then stood quietly. Many experts of the Feng family glared at the people of the Du family. The time is just right. You couldn't wait and came early. Du Jinwu smiled slightly. After a short greeting with the people of the Qin and Bai families, he went to sit in the Du family's lineup. Behind him sat many elders of the Du family. Du Xiaofu, Du Yu, Du Shui, and the other young people who came to watch the show could only stand quietly behind. Du Hao, Du Chong, Du Yin, and a few others from the Du family were present. Although these people were heavily injured and couldn't participate in the battle to avoid embarrassing the Du family, it wasn't a problem for them to come out and watch the show. City Lord Yi is here. The crowd became restless again. In the corner of the square, many figures appeared. Chapter 68. Greetings, City Lord. Greetings, City Lord. Around the square, countless onlookers saluted one after another. Their voices converged into a mighty wave that lingered above the square for a long time. Outside the square's special passageway, hundreds of figures walked out. At the front was a handsome middle-aged man and a beautiful girl who were particularly eye-catching. Wherever they went, the residents of the Stone City respectfully saluted. It was enough to show that their status in the entire Stone City was extraordinary. Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked over. It was the city lord, Yi Baolin. The girl behind him was naturally Yi Zijin. She had white skin and a delicate face. She was a few years younger than Qin Xiaolu and Bai Tsai, but her temperament was not inferior to the former two. Everyone, no need to be so polite. Yi Baolin walked all the way to the front of the square, indicating that the residents of the Stone City did not need to be so polite. Greetings, City Lord. The experts of the Du, Qin, Ji, and Bai families all stood up and saluted. Under the City Lord, they had to be respectful. Everyone, no need to be so polite. Yi Baolin smiled and waved his hand, indicating that the crowd did not need to be so polite. He then took the lead and sat in the center. Xiaofu, long time no see. Under many envious gazes, Yi Zijin walked to Du Xiaofu's side and smiled slightly, causing many young men and young men around to be stunned. Originally, Bai Tsai and Qin Xiaolu were absolute beauties, but at this moment, with the appearance of Yi Zijin, the two women could not help but be overshadowed, as if they had become a foil. It hasn't been long. Looking around at the murderous gazes falling on him, Du Xiaofu could only smile bitterly in his heart. He clearly knew that the girl in front of him deliberately came at this time to make hatred for him, but there was nothing he could do. Yi Zijin moved closer to Du Xiaofu again, almost sticking to Du Xiaofu's chest. The corners of her mouth curved into a perfect arc. She nodded and said softly, "I heard that some time ago, someone deliberately caused trouble for you. It seems that there will be a lot of people causing trouble for you today. However, my Yi family will definitely stand with you." As Yi Zijin stood so intimately in front of Du Xiaofu, many people around them became even angrier. Many of the youths from the various great families were already rubbing their fists and palms together. They were facing a common enemy, and they intended to teach this Du Xiaofu a lesson together. Even many experts from the various large clans looked at Du Xiaofu and Yi Zijin with deep meaning. Although Du Hao, Du Chong, and Du Yin were standing behind Du Xiaofu, their gazes were filled with jealousy and envy. They couldn't understand how the idiot of 10 years could have such a huge change in him. How could he suddenly crush them under his feet? More importantly, even Yi Zijin's heart seemed to have fallen for that guy. In terms of strength, Du Hao, Du Chong, and the others were very clear that their current strength was not as good as Du Xiaofu's. However, in terms of handsomeness, they felt that they were better than Du Xiaofu. Since Missy likes to do this, then I feel that I should cooperate. Don't you think so? A smile that was not a smile suddenly surged onto Du Xiaofu's face. When his soft voice sounded, he suddenly took a step forward and directly stuck close to Yi Zijin. His right arm also took the opportunity to sweep horizontally and landed on the small waist in front of him, which could not even be hugged by a single arm. Being so close to each other, Du Xiaofu could feel two soft places on his chest. This made Du Xiaofu, who was so close to a woman for the first time, tremble in his heart. A strange feeling surged in his heart. Yi Zijin was instantly stunned. She never thought that Du Xiaofu would be so bold in front of so many people and in front of the entire stone city. Her heart trembled, and for a moment, her entire body was sluggish, and her cheeks flushed red. At this moment, countless young men in the surroundings and the square looked at the young man and woman who were tightly hugging each other. Their eyes were lifeless, and then they became bloodshot. That was a young lady that no one in the entire city could touch. However, at this moment, she was being held in the arms of that young man. Everyone's feelings could be imagined. The people from the various large families were stunned. Could it be that the rumors were true? Even Yi Baolin and the experts from the Yi family were stunned. This kid really knows how to take advantage of others. Only Du Zhenwu and Du Zhixiong looked at each other in dismay. After being stunned for a moment, they both revealed a smile that was not a smile and laughed in their hearts. In the crowd, Zhuolong and Chao Chitai looked at the two people who were tightly hugging each other. A trace of coldness flashed through their eyes without leaving a trace. Their faces suddenly became gloomy, but they quickly returned to normal. However, the gloominess on Chao Chitai's face disappeared a little faster than Zhuolong's. The competition is about to begin. I hope that you can stand until the end. The redness on Yi Zijin's face quietly faded. She recovered her senses in a short period of time. Her graceful body moved slightly to the right, and her slim waist, which could not be grasped with one hand, left Du Xiaofu's right wrist. She lightly pursed her red lips and smiled. Her eyes once again became calm. Yi Zijin once again raised her head to look at Du Xiaofu. Her eyes seemed to contain some deep meaning as she said, "Later, my Yi family will help you block one of the clans. You will have to rely on yourself for the other two clans." As her voice faded, the beautiful figure turned around and left with light steps. "Everyone, it's about time. Let's begin," Yi Baolin softly said. It was as if he did not see this scene. However, his gaze did, intentionally or unintentionally, sweep across Du Xiaofu's body. Whoosh! As Yi Baolin's voice sounded, the figure of an old man in a long robe from the Yi clan behind him immediately leaped out from the ground. Like an eagle flapping its wings, he soared into the air and gently landed in the middle of the open ground that had been circled out. Good! As the old man landed, his beautiful movement technique naturally won the cheers of the entire square. The old man looked around the square and nodded his head slightly. He loudly said, Today is the competition between the younger generation of the Stone City's 5 great clans that occurs once every 3 years. It represents the endless emergence of our Stone City's younger generation and strengthens our Stone City. Now, participants from the great clans, come on stage. All of you, go. The expressions of Yi Baolin, Cho Qingsong, Qin Zongqiang, Bai Jiru, and the rest slightly changed. They looked at the eager younger generation behind them and said softly, "Yes." The young men and women of the great clans nodded. Yi Zijin's graceful figure took the lead. The profound qi under her feet surged, and her delicate body shot out. In the air, her graceful body was like duckweed crossing the sea, like a fallen leaf in the autumn wind. Finally, she gently landed on the square. She was elegant and noble, with a hint of coldness, which moved people's hearts. Bai Tsai's eyes flickered, and her long skirt fluttered. A surge of profound energy suddenly gushed out, and her graceful figure, like a fairy, directly crossed the void. After that, she gracefully landed not far from Yi Zijin's side, causing everyone's eyes to light up. Qin Xiaolu was not willing to fall behind. The profound qi under her feet fluctuated, and her beautiful figure jumped into the air. Suddenly, the profound qi under her feet surged out like a whirlpool. Borrowing the power of the profound qi, her graceful body spun a few rounds in the air like a spinning top and finally landed not far from Bai Tsai. Qin Xiaolu obviously did not want to lose to Yi Zijin and Bai Tsai. Her beautiful movement technique was extremely elegant and beautiful. Good. The 3 women landed, and the 3 graceful figures competed with each other. The cheers immediately resounded in the square. Chapter 69. Chi-Chi almost at the same time as the 3 girls landed, Zhuolong, Zhuohu, and Bai Tianming also landed in the square. Their handsome faces and confident temperaments were enough to attract the gazes of many young girls. Chao Chi-Tai looked at the several people who had landed in front of him, his gaze fluctuating. Suddenly, his figure shot out from the ground like a swift. His feet left the ground and his body was in midair. Suddenly, his footsteps were like a cloud ladder, each step higher than the last. Finally, his body made a beautiful spin in the air. His profound qi surged and his long robe fluttered in the wind. Then, he landed lightly beside Qin Xiaolu. So handsome, so strong. Without a doubt, Chao Chi-Tai's beautiful movement technique was undoubtedly more eye-catching than that of Zhuolong, Zhuohu, and Bai Tianming. He was able to stand out among the many extraordinary young people. Not only did he attract a lot of surprised gazes from the seats of the experts, but the spectators around the square also burst into cheers. Qin Xiaolu glanced sideways at Chao Chi-Tai beside her. At this time, the gaze in her eyes softened. No matter what, as a woman, she had some vanity. Her fiancé received such applause under the eyes of the entire Stone City. She also felt proud. Whoosh whoosh. With Yi Zijin, Qin Xiaolu, Bai Tsai, Zhuolong, and the others taking the lead, the young boys and girls behind the great families rubbed their hands and rubbed their palms. They had long been unable to hold back. Their profound qi surged, and they deliberately showed off various movement techniques. Each and every one of them landed on the square in an extremely eye-catching manner, and they also attracted a lot of cheers. Xiaofu, it's your turn. You're the only one from the Du family, but you can't lose to the Du family's momentum. Du Zhixiong looked back at Du Xiaofu behind him and said softly. Seeing the cheers from the young generation of the great families, he was also somewhat unconvinced. The Du family naturally could not lose to others in terms of momentum. Good luck, brother Xiaofu. Du Yu, Du Shui, and the other cousins were all staring at Du Xiaofu. As a member of the Du family, if the Du family's momentum was weaker than the other families, they would lose face when they meet other families in the future. Aura? I've never learned a movement technique before. Du Xiaofu's face suddenly turned ugly. He hadn't learned any agility martial skills, so he couldn't display those fancy agility martial skills. How could he compare with Yi Zijin and Bai Tsai? At this moment, only the members of the Du clan had yet to enter the arena. The gazes of the experts from the various clans and the younger generation who had entered the arena all fell on Du Xiaofu. Xiaofu, go. Du Jinwu didn't give Du Xiaofu any pressure, but there was obviously some hidden expectation in his eyes. Sigh. Du Xiaofu secretly sighed. Then, under the astonished gazes of the audience, a faint golden light suddenly appeared around his body. His feet stomped on the ground, and his figure suddenly shot out in a straight line like a rocket. Finally, he fell straight down from the sky, and his feet fiercely landed on the arena. Boom! As Du Xiaofu's feet landed on the ground, the entire square seemed to tremble. Countless spectators in the surroundings could feel the ground tremble as a fierce gust of wind swept out. The place where Du Xiaofu's feet landed, on the hard stone floor, suddenly cracks began to spread. Caw-caw! Gravel shot out, and a large area of the arena directly flipped over like a wave. Ding-ding! The ground was shaking, and the young men and women of the 4 big clans who were participating in the arena were not prepared at all. One by one, they suddenly staggered back. Their bodies were crooked, and they almost fell to the ground. Du Xiaofu's entrance was simple, and there was nothing fancy about it. However, it was so fierce, and incomparably domineering. The entire arena suddenly became silent, and numerous gazes were fixed on the figure of the purple-robed youth in astonishment. What a domineering kid. He's really unique, and looks down on the entire arena. Yi Baolin looked at the purple-robed youth who caused such a huge commotion in the arena. His handsome face was filled with astonishment, and he couldn't help but praise. Hee, this guy is domineering enough. I like it. Du Zhixiong's face was also filled with astonishment. He didn't expect Du Xiaofu to enter the arena in such a way. Then, a smile appeared in his eyes. How could he not see that just the domineering aura alone was enough to suppress everyone? Good, roar, Du Xiaofu. Good job, so handsome. After a short moment of silence, deafening applause erupted from the surrounding arena, and the entire arena was shaken. Many women were immediately fascinated by the purple-robed youth, and even many men couldn't help but cheer loudly. Perhaps all men had a domineering blood hidden in their hearts. Du Xiaofu's domineering entrance had undoubtedly caused the blood in many people's bodies to begin to boil. If the entrance of Chao Chi-tai, Yi Jin, and the others was a visual feast for the spectators, then the entrance of Du Xiaofu was a kind of spiritual baptism. Comparing the two, it was obvious who was better and who was worse. In the crowd, Yi Jin and Bai Tsai's eyes fell on Du Xiaofu's body. Looking at the youth who was cheering for the whole arena, their eyes were moved. He really has some real strength. His 10 years of forbearance, his real purpose, was it for today? Bai Tsai murmured in a low voice. Humph. Looking at the cheers and shock caused by Du Xiaofu, Bai Tianming, Qi Hu, and the others coldly snorted, and their hearts were very unhappy. Qilong and Chao Chi-tai squinted their eyes, quietly looking at Du Xiaofu, and their faces didn't change much. Brother Xiaofu, good job. Among the younger generation of the Du family, looking at the cheers caused by Du Xiaofu, Du Shui, and the others couldn't help but cheer for him. Even Du Hao, Du Chong, and Du Yan's bodies were slightly trembling. If they didn't have a grudge against Du Xiaofu, they would have cheered for him just now. On the field, the Yi family's elder was also extremely shocked, but when he recovered, he looked at the participants of the major families who had already entered the field and said loudly, I will repeat the rules of the competition. You are not allowed to use power that doesn't belong to you, and you are not allowed to deliberately harm other people's lives. Those who violate the rules will be jointly punished by the major families. The circle in the field will be the arena, and those who fall out of the circle will be considered as the loser. There are no other rules, and you can join forces to besiege or team up to besiege. In the end, the 5 people who remain in the arena will obtain a perfected innate stage martial skill and a mobile-grade initial stage medicinal pill that can increase one's cultivation base. The last person who remains in the arena will obtain a mobile-grade medicinal pill and a perfected innate stage martial skill, and he'll be able to enter the Yi family's thunder pool to cultivate. The Yi family's elder finished speaking in one breath, and then looked at the younger generation of the major families in front of him, and said loudly, Now, I announce the start of the competition. Buzz. As the Yi family's elder finished speaking, a melodious sound of a bell came out from the field, and the sound wave was melodious and long, resounding throughout the stone city. Boom! At the same time, all around the field, there were thunderous shouts, and the whole field exploded. Chapter 70. Whoosh whoosh. Almost in a short time, as the old man of the Yi family announced the start of the competition, shadows flashed in the square. It seemed that they had already been prepared. Qin Xiaolu, Chao Chitai, and the other 13 people of the Qin family directly blocked in front of the 15 people of the Yi family led by Yi Zijin. Without a doubt, the Qin family had already planned to attack the Yi family. At the same time, 30 figures surrounded Du Xiaofu as if they had planned this beforehand. 30 people, no more, no less. The Bai family and the Chu family each had 15 people, led by Bai Cai, Bai Tianming, Zhuolong, and Zhua Hu. Their target was Du Xiaofu. Zhuolong looked at Bai Cai and said softly, "After dealing with Du Xiaofu together, we will decide who is better, so as not to be taken advantage of. What do you think?" Bai Cai looked at Du Xiaofu, then looked at Zhuolong and nodded. She simply replied with one word, "Okay." In an instant, swords were drawn. The participants of the Bai family and the Chu family stared at Du Xiaofu at the same time. Zhua Hu and Bai Tianming revealed a malicious smile. After waiting for so long, they finally got the chance to take revenge. Being besieged by 30 people from the two families, they did not believe that Du Xiaofu would not be able to get out of here alive. Shameless, they are really besieging him. At the head of the square, Du Zhixiong angrily slapped his chair. He was extremely angry. He did not expect the Zhua family and the Bai family to be so shameless that they were ready to join hands to deal with one person. Du Jinwu's eyes also revealed a dignified look. He somewhat regretted his decision. He should not have let Du Xiaofu fight alone. No matter how strong he was, he could not deal with 30 people, especially Bai Cai. Zhuolong was obviously not an ordinary person. All the people of the Du family were nervous, and their faces were dignified. "Yi Zijin, I want to know how strong you are now." Qin Xiulu took the lead. The long sword in her hand was unsheathed. Her xian qi surged, and the sword light gushed out with runes. Several sword lights directly shrouded Yi Zijin. Yi Zijin looked at Du Xiaofu, who was besieged by the Bai family and the Zhua family, and frowned. A long whip with numerous barbs swept out. Xian qi surged, and her wrist turned. The long whip penetrated the air barrier and directly wrapped around the sword light. The two women exchanged blows in a short period of time. Then, the people of the Qin clan and the Yi clan also picked their opponents. The battle was about to start. Du Xiaofu looked at the 30 people surrounding him, then his gaze finally landed on the Bai clan's formation. He asked softly, "Who is Bai Mei?" Among the 15 members of the Bai family, a rather beautiful girl walked out. She was about 16 or 17 years old, and she held a light green long sword in her hand. Her profound qi fluctuated, and she looked at Du Xiaofu with some nervousness and doubt. She asked, "I am Bai Mei? I'll protect you," Du Xiaofu said with a smile. Even though he was besieged by the two families, he was still calm and relaxed. "How dare you adjust your xian qi at this time? My Bai family, beat this brat." A Bai family youth was furious. "Teach this brat a lesson. Don't hold back." Zhua Hu found an opportunity and shouted, "Beat him to death." Bai Tianming nodded. The Bai and Zhua family youths walked toward Du Xiaofu at the same time. Their xian qi surged, and their eyes were filled with anger. Du Xiaofu was besieged by them, but he still had the mood to flirt with a girl. This brat was definitely not a good person. He was still so arrogant at this time. They must teach this bastard a lesson. "How dare you flirt with my Bai family? You'll be miserable." The Bai family youth who spoke first shouted, "I didn't flirt." Du Xiaofu firmly disagreed. He only asked, "How could that be considered flirting? He was not that kind of person." "How dare you quibble? You'll be miserable," the Bai family youth said angrily. His xian qi fluctuated, and he was about to attack. "Noisy. I said I didn't flirt, so I didn't. Are you blind?" Du Xiaofu's indifferent face suddenly darkened. He raised his hand, and a pale golden light surged around his body. His right hand suddenly waved forward, and at the same time, his figure appeared in front of the Bai family youth like a ghost. His right hand landed on the youth's chest. Bang! A low and deep muffled sound rang out as the body of the young man from the Bai clan was sent flying several dozen meters away, after which the sound of his ribs breaking could be heard as his body violently fell outside the circle. Blood sprayed from his mouth, and he was no longer able to stand up. What? Whether it was the experts from the various families, the spectators around the square, or the younger generation of the Zhua and Bai families surrounding Du Xiaofu, they were all stunned. Bastard. Let's beat this brat together. This brat is difficult to deal with. Let's work together. The participants from the Bai and Zhua families were furious. Du Xiaofu actually dared to attack first. He did not even put them in his eyes. One of them was sent flying in a single exchange. Immediately, they clenched their fists and gritted their teeth. So noisy. If you want to attack together, then hurry up. So much nonsense. Du Xiaofu stood calmly and looked disdainfully at the crowd. He really did not know why these fellows were always talking more than they were doing. The Bai and Zhua families were furious. He was looking down on them too much. It turned out that Du Xiaofu did not put them in his eyes at all. I'll let you be arrogant. Everyone, let's attack together. Don't hold back. Teach this brat a good lesson. A young man from the Ji clan charged out and shouted loudly. After that, the members of the Ji clan and Bai clan moved in unison. Even Bai Mei, who'd been teased by Du Xiaofu, had joined in as well. Profound energy fluctuated while weapons emitted whistling sounds as they instantly flashed towards Du Xiaofu in unison. Rumble. Nearly 30 people besieging one person. They did not believe that they could not take care of Du Xiaofu. They must teach that brat a good lesson to vent the hatred in their hearts. Dozens of people besieged Du Xiaofu at the same time. For a moment, the plaza was filled with sand and rocks, and the ground trembled. The momentum was astonishing. The people around the plaza and the Du family were on tenterhooks. If Du Xiaofu fought them one by one, he might have a chance to win. However, if he was besieged by dozens of people at the same time, the consequences could be imagined. Seeing dozens of people besieging him, Du Xiaofu did not panic. The clear gaze in his eyes quietly became sharp and deep, and a faint golden light surged around his body. Come on. Do you think you can do anything to me because you have more people? Get lost. Du Xiaofu suddenly shouted. His voice was like thunder, causing people's eardrums to vibrate. Facing dozens of people besieging him, he did not retreat. Instead, he advanced. His figure was like a fierce beast, and the ground cracked. With the strength of his body, he directly collided with the Zhua family youth who was the fastest to pounce over. Boom! The two bodies collided, and the Zhua family youth was immediately sent flying. Blood sprayed out of his mouth, and all the ribs in his body were broken. Du Xiaofu's body continued to charge forward, as if he was not obstructed at all. All of this was beyond everyone's imagination, and it shocked everyone. No one expected that Du Xiaofu would actually use such a special method to attack. It was simple, but violent and shocking. Thank you, smiling beauty, for your reward. Thank you. All right. There are only a few days left until the 16th. Little Yu is preparing for a big explosion on the day of the release. Brothers and sisters, have you prepared the flowers? After a few months, Little Yu has returned. I hope to create another glory with all my brothers and sisters. Let Martial God's world surpass Martial God's world, and let Du Xiaofu continue in Lu Xiaoyu's footsteps. After Martial God's world, there might be Lu Xiaoyu, Lu Jingyun, and the Pigfoot you Feng from ascend the three realms. It won't be a simple soy sauce, so Little Yu won't spoil it for now. On the 16th, Little Yu will wait for everyone to create another glory together. All right. Chapter 71. At the same time, Du Xiaofu brandished his fists. Light golden fist imprints shot out from each of his fists and bombarded the iron rod and the long sword of a man and a woman. Kacha! A cracking sound was emitted. Everything had overturned everyone's understanding. The hard metal rod and sharp long sword were unable to block Du Xiaofu's fist at all and shattered at the same time. The man and woman also spat out blood from the terrifying impact. Finally, their bodies were sent flying in an incomparably miserable manner. Get lost. Du Xiaofu didn't stop at all. He took a step forward and directly appeared beside another young man. He directly stepped on his shoulder and crushed it to the ground. The young man's shoulder bones were broken under the pressure. Boom! With a wave of his hand, Du Xiaofu punched the back of a young man beside him, sending him flying and crashing into two other people not far away. The three of them spurted out blood and were sent flying. Bang, bang, bang. The whole scene was in chaos. Dozens of people besieged Du Xiaofu, but no one expected the result to be like this. Du Xiaofu was too ferocious. No one could keep up with his rhythm. The siege became a one-man show for Du Xiaofu. Everywhere he passed, people were sent flying, sand and stones were sent flying, and the ground trembled. Kacha, a young man from the Sea clan, attacked. The broadsword in his hand slashed down with a terrifying gust of wind, but it was caught by Du Xiaofu in an instant. Du Xiaofu broke the broadsword with one hand. Then, the young man's body was sent flying by Du Xiaofu's kick. Boom! Immediately after, several figures were sent flying. Each and every one of them had broken bones and gushed out blood. It was an extremely miserable sight. Du Xiaofu's performance was too ferocious. He was like a demonic beast in human form. With a raise of his hand, he could destroy everything. No one could stop him. It was extremely terrifying. When the figures were sent flying, Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in front of Si Hu and Bai Tianming in an unstoppable manner. Si Hu and Bai Tianming were stunned. They knew that Du Xiaofu was powerful, but they never thought that Du Xiaofu would be so ferocious and terrifying. Boom! After all, the two of them were Xiantian stage cultivators, and their talents weren't weak. In a short moment, they came back to their senses and formed hand seals. Rune ripples spread out from them, and the two of them clenched their teeth and unleashed their strongest attacks towards Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu stomped the ground, and his figure leaped out. He pounced towards the two of them like a ferocious tiger pouncing on its prey. He allowed their attacks to envelop him, and his body flickered with a faint golden glow. Profound energy surged, and he used the most barbaric method to forcefully destroy their attacks. Go! Then, with a shake of his arms, a golden light surged. Under the horrified gazes of the crowd, Du Xiaofu grabbed Si Hu and Bai Tianming's shoulders and lifted them up high. Then, like throwing stones, he ruthlessly threw them into the air. Bang bang! Si Hu and Bai Tianming were heavily thrown out of the arena. Blood gushed out from their wounds and their faces were deathly pale. This kind of result was not what they had expected. If they had known, they wouldn't have dared to participate in this competition. Everyone was shocked. How powerful was Du Xiaofu? Si Hu and Bai Tianming were the best of the younger generation in the 5 great families. They were extremely powerful, but now, they were both sent flying by Du Xiaofu at the same time. That kind of terrifying strength and overbearing momentum made everyone's hair stand on end. Du Xiaofu from the Du family is too strong. Some experts sighed. Good boy, he's really strong. Everyone from the Du family was surprised and delighted. The younger generation of the Du family, such as Du Yu and Du Shui, watched Du Xiaofu display his ferocious power in the arena. All of them felt their blood boiling. Even Du Hao, Du Chong, and Du Yin were very excited. Not far away, after Chao Chitai defeated a young man from the Yi family who was second only to Yi Zijin in a valiant way, he didn't make any more moves. He just quietly watched Du Xiaofu. No one dared to make a move against him. Du Xiaofu stood in the middle of the arena. Among the 30 people from the Si family and the Bai family who had besieged him, there were only 3 people left. They were Silong, Bai Cai, and Bai Mei, whose eyes were trembling. Bai Mei was sandwiched between the 3 people. When she saw Du Xiaofu's ferocious attack, her delicate body trembled violently. The purple-robed young man in front of her was so overbearing and powerful, but he didn't make a move against her. Her heart was pounding. Could it be that he really fell in love with her? Although this guy who was hated by all the big families looked annoying, if one looked carefully, he was extremely lovable. Silong and Bai Cai looked at each other and seemed to have reached some kind of tacit understanding. Buzz! Bai Cai unsheathed her long sword, and the sound of the sword resounded. Bai Cai made her move. Her beautiful figure was like a fairy. Her white wrist danced, and the sword light shot out violently, accompanied by runes. Then, she directly pounced on Du Xiaofu. She has actually reached the nirvana realm of the innate realm. That is the Bai family's surging wave sword technique, a martial technique that is close to the mobile grade. I didn't expect Bai Tsai to have successfully cultivated it. As Bai Tsai made her move, the faces of the experts from the big families also changed. With Bai Tsai's age, she had actually reached the nirvana realm of the innate realm and cultivated the surging wave sword technique. Such talent was extremely rare. In a short breath, Bai Tsai's beautiful figure appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. Her toes lightly tapped the void, and she turned half a circle in the air like a refined lotus. She was extremely agile, and the long sword in her hand suddenly pointed at Du Xiaofu. Swish, swish. Several illusory sword shadows cut through the air as if they were tearing the space apart. The energy arc spread out and instantly sealed Du Xiaofu's vital acupoints. Du Xiaofu was slightly startled as he looked at the energy sword shadows that had sealed the vital points of his body. Soon after, a smile appeared in his eyes. Light flickered in his eyes as his hand seals quickly formed. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist. In an instant, an astonishing aura erupted. A punch directly smashed towards the numerous sword shadows in front of him. The powerful energy that was suddenly released caused many people to be surprised. Bang bang! A low muffled sound rang out one after another. There were a total of 13 sounds. Waves of shocking energy waves overlapped, and the aura multiplied. When it reached the 13th layer, the aura fiercely fell on the sword shadows like a shock wave. Bang! As the fist fell, countless sword shadows directly burst out. The long sword in Bai Tsai's hand was crushed by the violent energy, and it was directly pressed into an extremely shocking arc. It seemed like it was about to break, which made many onlookers in the distance surprised. Many people present had extraordinary vision. Although the long sword in Bai Tsai's hand was not at the level of a doctrine spirit weapon, after being infused with Xian Qi, the sword body was able to withstand an extremely huge amount of energy without breaking. However, at this time, under Du Xiaofu's fist, the long sword was directly bent. Bai Tsai's cultivation was at the nirvana realm of the innate realm, so it could be seen that Du Xiaofu's fist contained a terrifying amount of power. How can there be 13 layer waves in Hadouken? Did we all cultivate it wrongly? In the seats, Du Jinwu, Du Zhixiang, and the other experts of the Du family were also shocked. This was obviously the Hadouken of the Du family, Hadouken 9-layer waves. However, at this time, Du Xiaofu had activated 13 layer waves, which increased the power by many times. Ding ding! Bai Tsai's delicate body staggered back. With every step she took, the blue stone floor under her feet would directly crack and turn into fine powder. In the end, a trace of blood spilled out from the corner of her mouth. However, the long sword in her hand was bent into a dangerous arc because of her delicate body's retreat, but it did not break in the end when the energy faded away. Chapter 72. Profound Silence Flame Wave. Just as Bai Tsai's delicate body staggered backward, Zhuolong's figure suddenly appeared behind Du Xiaofu like a ghost. His profound qi surged violently, and a wave of energy enveloped Du Xiaofu like a wave. The terrifying energy wave was even stronger than Bai Tsai's. Innate realm, nirvana realm, almost reaching the complete realm. The experts from the various big families were shocked. Zhuolong's true cultivation level was even stronger than Bai Tsai's. Innate realm, nirvana realm, almost reaching the complete realm. With such a cultivation level, he was definitely the leader of the same generation among the 5 big families in Stone City. Feeling the energy wave behind him, Du Xiaofu quickly turned around with the corner of his mouth slightly raised. Just as the energy wave was nearing him, he made his move. His fist was wrapped in a pale golden light, like a dazzling light ball, and his fist directly smashed onto the energy wave. Boom! The space trembled, and the energy wave was directly shattered by Du Xiaofu's fist, turning into fragments and dissipating in the surrounding air. Zhuolong's figure appeared in front of Du Xiaofu with a gloomy smile on his face. His hand had already condensed the last hand seal, and the profound qi around his body fluctuated. There were faint traces of rune fluctuations, and then the profound qi condensed into an energy spear in front of him. Spear of star breaking, Zhuo Long lightly shouted, and the energy spear in his hand pierced towards Du Xiaofu's chest. It was so close, and he did not believe that Du Xiaofu could still resist. This time, he must enter the lightning pool. All these years, his goal was to become the strongest among his peers, and he indeed had the strength to do so. Chi-Chi. However, all of this was out of Zhuo Long's expectations. Just as Zhuo Long's thoughts had yet to fade away, the energy spear condensed in his hand suddenly stopped. It was actually held in Du Xiaofu's hand, and it was unable to move forward. Break! Du Xiaofu roared out in a low voice. His 5 fingers tightly grasped the profound energy spear that was thrusting towards him. As the golden light spread out along with the runes, the profound energy spear fluctuated endlessly. In the end, it was directly destroyed in Du Xiaofu's hands and turned into fragments. Qi. Du Xiaofu's figure rushed out like a ferocious beast. With an unstoppable momentum, he lifted Zhuo Long up and threw him out of the circle. Finally, under the astonished gazes of the surrounding people, Zhuo Long was heavily thrown out of the circle. Boom! Suddenly, a violent sound rang out from the ground of the square. Gravel flew everywhere, and cracks spread out from the dust that filled the air. Then, Zhuo Long appeared before everyone's eyes. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, and his face was as pale as ash. Perhaps he had never thought that everything he had thought of had turned into a fantasy. He had calculated everything, but he did not expect that Du Xiaofu's strength was so strong that he could not be matched. Everything he had was destroyed by Du Xiaofu's tyrannical and unparalleled tyranny. Big Brother Xiaofu, well done. In the Du family's lineup, Du Yu, Du Shui, and the other juniors were boiling. The scene in the square made them feel emotional. Du Jinwu, Du Zhixiong, and the other experts of the Du family were dumbfounded, but they were all pleasantly surprised. Only the people of the Zhuo family had unspeakable embarrassment and shock on their faces. Du Xiaofu, well done. Around the square, the tyrannical purple-robed youth caused the onlookers to burst into thunderous cheers. I am not your opponent. Bai Cai wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Her eyes glanced at Du Xiaofu, and then she turned around and left. Du Xiaofu turned his head with a smile, looked at Bai Mei, who was at a loss, and said, "Don't worry, I will protect you." Yes. Bai Mei nodded woodenly, and then slowly approached him. That tall and straight figure gave her an irresistible sense of security at this moment. Bang! 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 The battle between the Yi family and the Qin family was still going on. The contestants of the two families were constantly defeated, and there were not many people left. Qin Xiaolu and Yi Zijin were locked in a fierce battle. The long sword in Qin Xiaolu's hand was like a spirit snake coming out of its hole. The sword art was constantly changing, and its power was extraordinary. Although she was defeated by Du Xiaofu in one move last time, it did not mean that she was weak. On the contrary, she was very strong, at least among her peers. Yi Zijin was also very strong. During this period of time, she seemed to have made a breakthrough again, and had also stepped into the mysterious level of the Xiantian realm. The strange long whip in her hand was like a flying dragon soaring into the sky. It was not inferior to Qin Xiaolu at all, and as time passed, she gradually gained the upper hand. You go and deal with the others. Leave her to me. You can't win against her. Chao Chitai finally moved. Taking advantage of the gap between Qin Xiaolu and Yi Zijin, he came to Qin Xiaolu's side and looked at Yi Zijin with a faint smile on his face. Qin Xiaolu looked at Yi Zijin in front of her, and then looked at Chao Chitai. Her pearly white teeth lightly bit her red lips, and then her beautiful figure turned around and pounced towards the Yi family members who were entangled with the contestants of the Qin family. It had to be said that the overall strength of the younger generation of the Yi family was indeed stronger than their peers of the other major families. They had always occupied an absolute advantage. However, with the addition of Qin Xiaolu, the younger generation of the Yi family was immediately suppressed. Missy, aren't you going to withdraw yourself? You're not my opponent. Chao Chitai's extremely pleasant voice rang out. The smile on his face, coupled with his handsome appearance and his extraordinary strength, made him extremely outstanding in this arena. Go ahead, I want to try. Yi Zijin slightly gritted her teeth, and her expression showed that she was hesitant. Why are you doing this? I really don't want to hurt you. Chao Chi-tai smiled, and his expression was slightly regretful. I've said it before, I want to try. As her voice rang out, the strange long whip in Easy Jean's hand instantly swept out and suddenly shot towards Chao Chi-tai. Under the amplification of her profound energy, the long whip directly tore through the barrier of air and arrived in front of Chao Chi-tai in an instant. Facing Easy Jean's sudden attack, Chao Chi-tai's figure did not move. However, just as the long whip was about to block his body, his long robes faintly fluttered, and his body suddenly swayed. Instantly, his figure strangely disappeared. Seeing the figure in front of her suddenly disappear, Easy Jean's pupils shrank. Without the slightest hesitation, the strange long whip revolved and immediately lashed behind her. At this moment, an incomparably exquisite palm imprint directly slammed onto the strange long whip, blocking the long whip and at the same time, shaking it away. There seemed to be a wave of cold energy entwining around the long whip, causing Easy Jean to almost lose her grip on the long whip. She wrapped her profound energy around the long whip, and in the end, although she tightly held onto the long whip in her hand, the enormous force that penetrated through the whip caused the web between her thumb and index finger to split open, and fresh blood flowed from her delicate palm. Stomp, stomp. Easy Jean's delicate body was also forced back a few steps. Her delicate face was slightly pale, and a trace of seriousness flashed across her eyes. She said, I can't beat you, you win. As her words rang out, Easy Jean turned around and directly walked in front of Du Xiaofu, who was quietly watching from the side. Du Xiaofu's eyes slightly raised. Just as he was about to open his mouth to speak, several muffled sounds rang out from the side. With the addition of Qin Xiaolu, the remaining younger generation of the Yi family were all defeated. Qin Xiaolu had defeated quite a few of them, and the remaining participants of the Qin family were surrounded and defeated. However, the remaining members of the Qin family were also unable to continue fighting. I was just bullied. I believe that you will help me vent my anger. I'll leave it to you. You must win. Her red lips slightly parted. As her words rang out, Easy Jean gave Du Xiaofu a flirtatious smile, and her graceful figure walked out of the circle. At this moment, only Du Xiaofu, Qin Xiaolu, Chao Chi-tai, and the unexpected Bai Mei were left in the entire arena.